Chapter 113, Bewitching Men to Death. Chapter 113, Bewitching Men to Death. In the evening, Jiang Hao was practicing his saber techniques in the courtyard. He was just practicing some moves and didn't infuse the saber with any power. The 7 forms of Heavenly Blade also talked about some saber techniques which weren't really for fighting. Instead, the moves helped familiarize the person with the saber and were useful while cultivating. After a while, he sat down on the ground and started refining his saber. The spirit beast hadn't returned yet. Jiang Hao had asked it to look around and find some information on what was going on. The girl in the spirit herb garden and the sick man were all the confirmation Jiang Hao needed to know that the next target for the culprit was the Cliff of Broken Hearts. The matter had nothing to do with Jiang Hao, but he knew it would affect the spirit herb garden too. It would become impossible for people to work there if he ignored the problem. It was not easy to find people to work in the garden. The situation would get worse if Jiang Hao couldn't find the reason for it. Jiang Hao looked up at the full moon that hung high in the sky. It's great that I can still stay here and cultivate. It hadn't been easy going through everything with the Black Heaven sect, the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, and the Sunset Immortal sect. For now, Bai Yi also had no reason to attack him. There were fewer traitors than before. It was the right time for him to cultivate and advance. Nobody could cause trouble for now. Yet, someone had attacked the Deodal in the Estirit herb garden. Whoosh! A white figure suddenly barged into the courtyard. "Master, I found something." The spirit beast ran to Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao lifted his saber. "Lead the way." If the culprit was stronger than him, he would quietly retreat. He would approach Liu Xingchen and ask him for help. He didn't want to cause any trouble. The spirit beast ran at a speed. After a while, they reached the edge of the forest. "Over there." The spirit beast pointed at a middle-aged man outside the forest. "Is that the one you saw before?" Jiang Hao quietly approached the man. He looked listless. His eyes were pale. "Who bewitched him? Are you going to find that woman, master?" asked the spirit beast. "We'll follow him for now and see where it leads us," said Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao moved cautiously. He wasn't afraid of being discovered by the man in front. The man looked like an empty shell. Jiang Hao was afraid of being discovered by someone hiding in the forest. "Master wants the woman too?" asked the spirit beast. "I have no interest in women," said Jiang Hao impatiently. He followed the man into the forest. After walking deeper into the forest, Jiang Hao sensed something in the distance. The person who stood there was only in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. "How dare you kill so boldly when you are so weak?" thought Jiang Hao. The Heavenly Note sect was a demonic sect. All sorts of strange things happened here, but it was rare to see someone in such a low cultivation realm going around killing people without a care in the world. But why does she keep killing non-cultivators? Jiang Hao walked up to the middle-aged man and knocked him unconscious. He walked toward the woman. He masked his energy and his realm. The woman shouldn't be able to sense his strength at all. He was at the late stage of the Golden Core realm. He didn't need to fear her. The moon peeked through the forest canopy, lighting his way. With every step, Jiang Hao lowered his cultivation. He had now dropped to Foundation establishment realm. After a while, he dropped his cultivation realm to the lifeblood refinement realm. He stopped when he reached the 3rd stage of the lifeblood refinement realm. The woman wouldn't suspect him and would consider him weak. He could find out what she was after. However, he felt strange that there were no people from the law enforcement hall around here to investigate. He had found her so easily. There was no way that the law enforcement hall couldn't have caught her already. After a while, he reached an open meadow in the forest. He saw the woman lying on the ground with her shoulders exposed. Her hair was messy. She was radiant in the moonlight. Her pale skin was striking in the moonlight. Jiang Hao felt calm. He didn't feel anything else. This was the effect of the Heaven Extinction GU poison. He used the daily appraisal on the woman. She was pretending to be asleep. The Great Thousand God Sect. Jiang Hao had never heard of such a sect before. So, the woman is just a clone. It was no wonder no one from the law enforcement hall had been able to find her. Fortunately, she didn't share her memories with the main body. Otherwise, the enemy would be on alert. After confirming it, Jiang Hao no longer suppressed his cultivation. He raised his level to the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. The sudden change startled the clone lying on the ground. She was so frightened that she opened her eyes and tried to escape. Jiang Hao shook his head and used the demonic sound 1,000 miles technique. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of her and blocked her way. The clone of Wen Yin looked at Jiang Hao in panic. "Senior brother, please let me go. I have done nothing wrong. I just enjoy the company of other people. If you let me go, I will do anything you want. I'm even willing to come with you to your house." Jiang Hao swung the flat of his blade and struck her on the head. She dropped to the ground. He didn't kill her. He told the spirit beast to look for Liu Xingchen. Soon, Liu Xingchen flew down to him from the sky. He was surprised to see the scantily dressed woman on the ground. "Junior brother Jiang, you're truly cautious, aren't you?" said Liu Xingchen. "She's from the Great Thousand God sect. She's just a clone. If it wasn't for the fact that the main person is hidden very well, we would have already caught them by now." Great Thousand God sect. The Great Thousand God sect is a sect that specializes in helping people. They are often active in the Milky Way Sea. I hadn't expected them to infiltrate the Heavenly Note sect. We have nothing against them. They are probably here for something, said Liu Xingchen. They probably don't know the rules of our sect. I think that's why they killed people in the sect, hoping nothing would happen to them. I'll take her back, said Liu Xingchen. Should I mention you? Jiang Hao didn't want people to know that he did this. If he wanted the credit, he wouldn't have sent for Liu Xingchen. He would have called his master instead. As for the arrival of the Great Thousand God sect, it was probably related to the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Jiang Hao hesitated. Senior brother Liu, if I want to go out of the sect to a nearby town, what should I do? Liu Xingchen was stunned. He wondered if he had heard it wrong. Chapter 114, Chapter 114, Giving Advice on Cultivation. Chapter 114, Giving Advice on Cultivation. Jiang Hao and Liu Xingchen stood in the forest. In front of them lay the unconscious woman. What? I wanted to go out of the sect for something, said Jiang Hao. Although Liu Xingchen was surprised, he didn't ask his reason for it. It's not that difficult to go out. The thing is, will you be able to make it back to the sect? It's better to leave secretly when no one is watching. Be careful, though. The Black Heaven sect and the Sunset Immortal sect might be waiting for you outside the sect. If you sense something, it's better to retreat quietly. Jiang Hao thanked him. If something like that happened, he was prepared to use the 1,000 miles teleportation talisman. The Demoness could find him anywhere. He didn't need to worry about her. Your current situation is okay. You just need to ask the Law Enforcement Hall for permission, and they'll give you a mission. It shouldn't be that difficult. When are you going out? I can ask them for you. If they agree, you can leave, but you'll be given a time limit, said Liu Xingchen. You'll need to be back before the time runs out. They usually give up to 3 months to return. 3 months should be enough. I wonder what the mission would be. Law Enforcement Hall usually gives missions to recruit disciples or eliminate traitors. When recruiting disciples, they'll give you detailed information, said Liu Xingchen. As for eliminating traitors, you'll have to pay compensation if you can't do it. Don't worry, if you're at the Foundation Establishment realm, you'll be sent to deal with traitors in their Foundation Establishment realm. But sometimes, the information gets mixed up, and you might have to face a Golden Core realm cultivator. If that happens, you only have to return to the sect and compensate by paying some spirit stones. Spirit stones? Jiang Hao sighed. This demonic sect only sought to rob people in broad daylight. Jiang Hao hesitated. Then, if I fulfill the mission, do I get a reward? Of course, said Liu Xingchen and smiled. The Law Enforcement Hall will find you less suspicious. You can even make it out of their suspect list. Jiang Hao sighed. How many spirit stones are needed to pay the compensation? Well, it starts from 3,000 spirit stones. Jiang Hao looked shocked. The law enforcement hall needs spirit stones too, but they guarantee that they will suspect you less. If anything goes wrong, they'll bear responsibility, said Liu Xingchen. Are there many people who go out on missions for the law enforcement hall? Asked Jiang Hao. Yes. People on the suspect list don't have a livelihood. Not everyone is like you. They don't have a job here and can't go out on missions for the sect. So, they accept the law enforcement hall's missions to earn some spirit stones and to improve their cultivation. Jiang Hao nodded. He didn't need to go out of the sect to earn spirit stones or to improve his cultivation. It was too difficult to find any bubbles outside the sect. Are there any restrictions on accepting missions? Jiang Hao asked. I can get someone to do it for you. You can then head to the law enforcement hall to accept it. If you fail, save spirit stones to pay them. The law enforcement hall isn't unreasonable. You can pay back on a monthly basis within 3 years. I can find something that is profitable for you. Jiang Hao thanked him. Liu Xingchen left with the woman. Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. He needed to earn more spirit stones. Then, he needed to make another 1,000 miles teleportation talisman. It would be best if he could save up 3,000 spirit stones before heading out. Jiang Hao wanted to take the middle-aged man back with him. Just as he walked to the unconscious man, there was another person standing beside him, looking very flustered. When he saw Jiang Hao, he was scared. Senior brother, it wasn't me. He was here in this state when I arrived. I know. It's all right, said Jiang Hao. Why are you here so late? The young boy beside the unconscious man was Lin Ji, one of the people he had recruited to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Jiang Hao had never used his daily appraisal ability on him, but he had sensed something strange from him. He hadn't expected to meet Lin Ji here. The seniors are resting. I came to the forest to cultivate, said Lin Ji. He usually practiced his cultivation and stillness technique here in the forest. It was impossible for people who just started cultivating to circulate the spiritual energy in their bodies because they couldn't sense it properly yet. He couldn't absorb spiritual energy well either. The dynamic techniques were used to better absorb and guide the spiritual energy. Jiang Hao went over to the unconscious man lying on the ground. Lin Ji hurried to his side. Let me help, senior brother. Jiang Hao let him do it. There are 3 steps to entering the basics. Perceive the spiritual energy, the movement technique to guide the spiritual energy into the body, and finally accumulate enough spiritual energy to travel through the meridian, circulate it into the cultivation realm. Have you been able to do that yet? Jiang Hao. I am only able to sense my spiritual energy to some extent. Lin Ji was ashamed. He heard that Lin Mo and Zhao Qingxue were about to advance. He was just short of a full cycle. It's all right. It'll happen soon, said Jiang Hao to comfort him. Cultivation always takes time. The key is to do it step by step. When you are impatient, anxious, it'll confuse the spiritual energy. You need to practice mindfulness first. It'll come in handy. Keep yourself calm in all situations. Along the way, Jiang Hao explained the movement techniques to Lin Ji. Ji listened eagerly. He was overjoyed. Jiang Hao had cleared many of his doubts. As an outer sect disciple, it was rare for Lin Ji to receive personal Gui Dan from someone in the Golden Core realm. After dropping the man at his house, Jiang Hao told Lin Ji to head back. Don't go out too much during the night. It's not safe. Go and rest. Lin Ji nodded. Jiang Hao also returned to his own house. Lin Ji's path wasn't easy. His 2 closest friends had top-notch talent, while he was just average. The gap between them was too huge. Lin Ji couldn't manage to make any mistakes. He would end up dead. This was a demonic sect, after all. Master, are you going out again? Asked the spirit beast when he saw Jiang Hao heading out. Take me along with you. You stay here and watch the house, said Jiang Hao. Master, will you bring me gifts? Asked the spirit beast. Jiang Hao sighed. What do you want? Maybe a magical treasure that suits me. I'm not buying you treasures. Please, Master. Just one. Chapter 115. Chapter 115. The Terrifying Sect Master. Chapter 115. the terrifying sect master. Early that morning in the Black Heaven sect, Ren Shuang was listening to a senior explaining a cultivation technique in the square. At around noon, she turned around and left. These few days, she had only one thing in mind. She wanted an update on the seniors who had gone to the Heavenly Note sect to negotiate. She even asked a junior to find out any information regarding it. However, a few days passed with no news at all. Ren Shuang was more concerned about the person Situ Jian talked about. She hoped he was wrong. That person wasn't very strong. He was only average in his talent. Even if he was as powerful as Situ Jian thought he was, he couldn't really cause trouble against the Black Heaven sect, the Wind Lightning sect, and the Sunset Immortal sect combined. She saw a junior running to her. "Senior Sister Ren, something bad has happened." "What? What's wrong?" Ren Shuang saw that the junior was shaken. "Take a deep breath and tell me slowly. Is it news from the Heavenly Note sect?" "Yes." She nodded. Xiao Shui took a deep breath. Everyone who went to the Heavenly Note sect was killed except for senior brother Dongfang Cheng. The elders are dead. What? No one else survived. Ren Shuang was flabbergasted. If her father had gone with them, he would have been dead. Ren Shuang felt a chill down her spine. She couldn't quite believe it. This matter was directly connected to Jiang Hao. The Heavenly Note sect. The matter with the Black Heaven sect had been solved, for now. Many disciples couldn't forget that fateful day. They hadn't even been able to see the moon slash that killed everyone except one person from the other sects. Many wondered if they would have to fight the three great sects. Some of the formidable disciples were puzzled. They wondered why their sect hadn't chosen the most logical and less bloodthirsty way of negotiation. Only the masters of the 12 branches knew why this had happened, and there was nothing they could do. They couldn't disobey the sect master. The sect master had made a move. That meant that the rest of the masters had to be prepared. If they couldn't face the situation, they could always abdicate from their positions. It had been decades since they had seen the sect master, but the thought of her still made them tremble in fear. In order to appease her, they sent numerous resources to the main sect's pavilion. With sufficient resources, they could fight. This was also meant to show their loyalty. Jiang Hao didn't know about that. He spent his time earning spirit stones to buy more talisman-making materials. He now needed to save up 400 spirit stones to make another 1,000 miles teleportation talisman. 7 days later, Jiang Hao managed to make 463 spirit stones. He went to the market to buy the necessary materials. After he was done with it, he headed to the spirit herb garden. "Master, the cannibal woman hasn't attacked anyone else for the past few days. Maybe she is scared of me. Can I return home tonight?" asked the spirit beast. Jiang Hao had instructed the spirit beast to patrol the area at night. Fortunately, nothing had happened. However, the people of the Great Thousand God sect had not been captured yet. The law enforcement hall was proving to be a bit incompetent these days. "Master, do you want some carrots?" said the spirit beast. "Some friends have left these carrots for me." Jiang Hao examined one of the carrots. It had no spiritual remnants. It was safe. "We'll have an extra meal tonight." "All right." Jiang Hao was about to leave the spirit herb garden when suddenly he felt an energy fluctuation. He turned around to see someone walking toward him. Judging from her aura, she must be at least at the peak stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Jiang Hao walked out of the garden. There was a woman in ragged clothes who was fleeing. "What right do you have to arrest me? Why are you making such a big fuss? I only killed an outer sect disciple." "That's no use to you." The Heavenly Note sect had mobilized many disciples in the peak stage of the Foundation Establishment realm to hunt the clones. "There is no use running away. Do you think our law enforcement hall is useless?" The 4 people rode on their flying swords and pursued the woman. They had already managed to injure her. The woman spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, she charged at Jiang Hao. Since this sect values its disciples so much, she'd take one as a hostage. Jiang Hao sighed inwardly when he saw the woman charging at him. Another clone? He unsheathed his half-moon blade. He used the first form from the 7 forms of Heavenly Blade, also called the moonslaying technique. The blade glinted and slashed toward the woman. The attack made her stumble. The 4 disciples rushed to her and pinned her to the ground. The woman let out an ear-piercing scream. "Why are you chasing me? It was just an outer sect disciple. I am also a disciple of this sect. How dare you arrest me? If you have anything to say, say it at the Lawless Tower. You claim to be the sect's disciple. I assume you know what happens in the Lawless Tower." The 3 disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall picked her up and left. The 4th disciple approached Jiang Hao. "Thank you for helping us, junior brother." "It's nothing," said Jiang Hao and bowed. The woman seemed to be clueless about how the sect worked. The Law Enforcement Hall needed to capture murderers and throw them into the Lawless Tower to accumulate spiritual energy. The disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall were more than willing to participate in the capture because they were rewarded for it. The disciple nodded and left. Jiang Hao sighed. "Capturing and threatening the prisoner, what's the use anyway?" "Master, are we still having an extra meal tonight?" asked the spirit beast as it handed carrots to Jiang Hao. "Of course," said Jiang Hao. "Save these for dinner." He headed back into the spirit herb garden. He wanted to get back to work. There were fewer and fewer people in the garden now. He needed to find some non-cultivators to work in the garden. But how? Chapter 116, Increase in Cultivation. Chapter 116, Increase in Cultivation. There were not enough people in the spirit herb garden to take care of spirit herbs. Those who were still there wanted to stay for as long as they could. If they wanted to leave because of the recent dangers, Jiang Hao would have willingly given them spirit stones for their journey. Jiang Hao didn't think too much about it and returned to his house. Today was an important day for him. He had seen a blue bubble in his courtyard in the morning. He opened his interface. After half a year of grinding, he was finally where he needed to be. He could advance to the peak stage of the Golden Core realm. He would be at Liu Xingchen's level. No one would be able to threaten him, except for some formidable disciples. He was one of the top 10 disciples of the sect. No one would try to kill him in the sect anymore. The only other person from the top 10 list he knew was Manlong. He didn't know anyone else. He wondered how strong the person on the first rank was. Had they already surpassed the Golden Core realm? If everything went smoothly, he would reach the primordial spirit realm in another year. Jiang Hao needed to find out when the heavenly fragrance Dao flower gave a blue bubble. Sometimes, it would spawn a blue bubble every 3 days. Other times, it took around 5 days. He also needed to earn more spirit stones. He had so many things to consider. For now, he only needed to advance to the leak of the Golden Core realm. He sat cross-legged on the floor and calmed his mind. He circulated his spiritual energy. The Hong Meng Heart Sutra worked its magic, and his lifeblood began to surge. A huge force washed through his senses, followed by pain. Then, his spiritual energy gathered in his core. He felt the energy trying to break through the barrier. Purple energy surged around him like clouds. The power reached its peak and slowly dissipated. His aura emitted a dazzling light. He had made it to the peak stage of the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. He was overjoyed. The power was so overwhelming that he felt like challenging someone to a fight. It had been a long time since he had found someone on his own level to fight with. The only time he had felt a thrill was when fighting the people from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. Jiang Hao brushed his thoughts aside and began to refine his cultivation. Early the next morning, Jiang Hao completed refining his cultivation. He was now truly at the peak of the Golden Core realm. He checked his interface. The lifeblood and cultivation were at their lowest. It would take a long time to accumulate them again. After that, he started making talismans. The most important thing was to make the 1,000 miles teleportation talisman. Jiang Hao needed to make that before Hong Yuye's next visit. However, the 1,000 miles teleportation talisman was very difficult to create. After the last attempt, he had taken a long time to recover. His clear and pure heart ability wasn't at its peak. Jiang Hao tried to make that talisman 8 times in the next 15 days. However, He failed every single time. He set it aside. He made healing talismans and 100,000 swords talismans for the time being. Jiang Hao kept selling them for spirit stones. Jiang Hao headed to the spirit herb garden and was delighted to find that Cheng Cho was back. However, his arm was injured. "You're finally back." Jiang Hao was relieved to see him. Since Cheng Cho had been gone for more than a month, Jiang Hao was beginning to think that something bad had happened to him. The spirit beast happily ran over to Cheng Cho. "Hello, senior brother Jiang." Cheng Cho bowed respectfully. "How did you get injured?" asked Jiang Hao, gesturing to his hand. "I met a demonic beast on the way. I ended up using all the talismans that you gave me." "That's all right. I'm glad it came in handy. How's Xiao Li?" he asked. Junior sister Xiao Li's house was very far away. It took 5 days' journey to reach there. We were delayed because of the demonic beast. On the 7th day, we finally reached the place. It was a small village near the river. Jiang Hao nodded. He knew that from when he had used the daily appraisal ability on Xiao Li. She was rescued from the river by an old couple. Junior sister Xiao Li's parents are very old. They are over 60 years of age. "Their condition isn't very good," said Cheng Cho. They were very happy to see her, though. She spent most of her time chopping wood and taking care of the house. "We took a lot of food for them from the spirit stones you gave us." "Oh, only 2 spirit stones are left now. You can keep them." Jiang Hao gave Cheng Cho a lifeblood pill. "Here, take this to treat your injuries." "Thank you." Cheng Cho was delighted. The lifeblood pill was difficult to obtain. He could even advance to the 9th stage of the lifeblood refinement realm with the pill. "Xiao Li's parents, do they have any relatives?" asked Jiang Hao. "Yes, but they haven't been in contact for over 10 years, said Cheng Cho. He then hesitated a little. "What is it?" Jiang Hao asked. "It's this," said Cheng Cho as he brought out something that was wrapped in oil paper. "Xiao Li's mother sent some snacks for you. She was grateful because you let Xiao Li visit her home." Jiang Hao accepted it. "Thank you," he said. "Where is Xiao Li?" "She said she was hungry. So, she went to eat," said Cheng Cho awkwardly. "Does she want to go back again?" "Yes." Jiang Hao nodded. "Tell her that she can go back to visit her parents again if she makes it to the 2nd stage of the lifeblood refinement realm by the end of the year. Remember to emphasize that it should be done by the end of the year." Cheng Cho was puzzled. Why must it be by the end of the year? He didn't dare to ask further and just nodded. "Oh, I saw that the spirit herb garden lacks people. It seems there have been some deaths in the sect. Should I try to recruit more people to work here?" Jiang Hao nodded. "Yes. Recruit them and tell me." Chapter 117, Call Me Big Brother. Chapter 117, Call Me Big Brother. Some people who had won to work in the other spirit herb gardens had been called back already. However, even then, they lacked people. There were many things that needed to be done in the spirit herb garden. Usually, non-cultivators could tend to the spirit herbs in the garden. There was no need to disturb other disciples. Only some things needed the attention of the cultivators. The spirit herb garden wasn't a hectic place to work in, except when they had a rush of orders. Before Jiang Hao joined the spirit herb garden, the non-cultivators had lived in fear. If something happened in the garden, the inner sect disciples would blame them. At noon, Jiang Hao was done with his work in the spirit herb garden. He sat down and ate the food sent by Xiao Li's mother. He used the daily appraisal ability on the food before eating to make sure it wasn't poisonous. It was just an ordinary home-cooked meal. Soon, Cheng Cho returned with the spirit beast. The beast had insisted on following Cheng Cho to make his job easier. There were 8 other people who had returned with Cheng Cho. They wore tattered clothes and looked frail and skinny. Most of them were too young. The youngest was about 14 years of age. Jiang Hao looked at the pitiful young girl. He didn't ask where Cheng Cho had found them. The 8 people stood with their heads lowered in fear. Some of them had scars and bruises on their bodies. Jiang Hao knew that those were inflicted by the disciples from the sect. Jiang Hao didn't sense anything strange from them. He hadn't absorbed everything in the nameless manual, but he could sense that these people were ordinary non-cultivators. If he wanted to find out more about them, he would have to use the daily appraisal ability on one person each day. Arrange accommodation for them. Have them change into something decent and brief them on the work, said Jiang Hao. All right, said Cheng Chou. Cheng Chou led them away. You don't have to look so scared. It's all right. You're lucky to be selected to work here. Just do your job well and you'll be fine. Master, I asked Cheng Chou to pick these people, said the spirit beast. Those people didn't dare refuse me. Maybe they knew how powerful I was. Jiang Hao ignored it. The people were all in their lifeblood refinement realm. The spirit beast was in the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. Obviously, they wouldn't refuse out of fear. Jiang Hao headed to the market to sell the talismans that he had made over the past few days. He earned more than 200 spirit stones. After taking a break for almost a month, Jiang Hao tested his clear and pure heart ability. He then tried making another 1,000 miles teleportation talisman. To make this talisman, Jiang Hao had saved every ounce of his energy. He hadn't even tried to practice the third form of the heavenly blade. Jiang Hao didn't know when Hong Yuye would visit him. He needed to create that talisman as soon as possible. He had a feeling that he would be even more drained than before after making the talisman. However, he would at least have a way of escape. Jiang Hao dipped the brush in the beast's blood and began to draw. Every stroke was as smooth as the flow of water in a stream. His spiritual energy was stable, and his state of mind was clear. Halfway through, he felt his body heat up. His mind became even more focused. After a while, the last stroke fell. Following that, he retrieved his spiritual energy. When everything calmed down, Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. He felt tired. His cultivation realm had increased, but the exhaustion he felt was more severe than before. He lay down to rest. After a while, he got up and picked up the newly made talisman. On the surface, it was exactly like the talisman he had made before, but something about it was different. He used the daily appraisal on it. The range has increased. It's no wonder I was exhausted. Putting away the talisman, Jiang Hao began to check his own condition. He could no longer use the clear and pure heart ability because he had exhausted his spiritual energy. This wasn't worth it. I wonder if it'll be better after reaching the primordial spirit realm. Jiang Hao now had 2,000 miles teleportation talismans. It should be much safer to go out of the sect now. He didn't plan to venture out. He wanted to use one of the talismans to teleport directly to his destination. Jiang Hao began to meditate. His current condition wasn't good. He wanted to preserve his strength. Thankfully, Bai Yi and the Heavenly Joy Pavilion hadn't pulled any more stunts. Jiang Hao knew that they were waiting for the right time to strike. The Heavenly Joy Pavilion was after him because he had killed Yun Ruo. So many people seemed to like her even though she was nothing but a traitor. Then there was the Sunset Immortal sect, which wanted him dead at any cost. He couldn't understand why they were so bloodthirsty. There must be others like Yun Ruo in their sect. So, why were they so hung up on her? Jiang Hao sighed. The most important thing for him right now was to go collect the remaining bubbles from the garden. He needed to accumulate his lifeblood and cultivation diligently. He was so close to advancing to the primordial spirit realm, after all. After that, even Bai Yi wouldn't be much of a threat. The next day, Jiang Hao watered the heavenly fragrance Dao flower and headed to the spirit herb garden. After collecting the bubbles, he looked at the people in the spirit herb garden. He had appraised them one by one in the past month. They didn't pose any danger. They were just ordinary non-cultivators. The people had finally assimilated into their new work environment. Jiang Hao was just tending to the herbs when he heard a playful voice. "Rabbit, let me catch you." Xiao Li chased the spirit beast around. "You can't call me that," said the spirit beast indignantly. "Then, what should I call you?" asked Xiao Li. The spirit beast jumped onto Xiao Li's shoulder and thought about it. "Chem. You can call me Big Brother. If you do that, I'll protect you." People will treat you with respect if they think you're my sister. Really? Xiao Li grabbed the rabbit and squeezed it. Of course, said the spirit beast as it ignored her. It's all about credibility and respect. Xiao Li was very happy to hear this. Jiang Hao almost laughed out loud. The spirit beast was really something. Lying in broad daylight, perhaps only the naive dragon, who had lost her memory, would believe it in this world. Xiao Li had come to visit Jiang Hao. She couldn't stand the senior who taught her, so she wanted Jiang Hao to help her. He let her stay in the spirit herb garden and instructed the spirit beast to watch over her. Xiao Li was very obedient. She didn't stir any trouble at all. Just as Jiang Hao was about to get to his work, Mingyi sought him out. He hadn't seen her for a very long time. Chapter 118, The Demoness Question. Chapter 118, The Demoness Question. Junior brother Jiang, you seem to have gained a lot of useful things these days, said Mingyi as she approached Jiang Hao. She was all smiles as though she was the only friend Jiang Hao had in this world. Senior sister Ming, you must be joking, said Jiang Hao. I haven't even left the Cliff of Broke Hearts in about a year. Mingyi sat beside him. I heard you recruited a very talented disciple to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Jiang Hao was on his guard. He nodded. Mingyi was a spy from the Heavenly Saint sect who had infiltrated the Heavenly Note sect. Miao Tinglian used to be a part of the Heavenly Saint sect too. It was very likely that the two of them knew each other. If they met, who knew what would happen? If Mingyi sought him out to ask him that, then she wasn't afraid of her identity being exposed. Jiang Hao didn't understand why she was taking such a risk. A senior sister did join us, said Jiang Hao. Mingyi smiled. You call her senior sister even though she has just joined? Her cultivation realm is higher than mine, said Jiang Hao. I see. Mingyi laughed. I went out of the sect for a while and heard a lot of things. I heard some people were targeting you, junior brother Jiang. Some wait for you outside the sect, while others infiltrate this sect to get to you. Pretending to be ordinary people. Jiang Hao was stunned. The Heavenly Note sect had brought in a lot of ordinary non-cultivators recently. Thank you for telling me, senior sister Ming, said Jiang Hao politely. He knew that Mingyi probably would stab him in the back someday, but so far, she hadn't caused him any harm. Oh, right. I almost forgot. There's the matter with the Heavenly Saint sect. Those lunatics are very single-minded. You need to be careful, junior brother Jiang. Jiang Hao nodded and thanked her for the warning. Mingyi got up and left. Jiang Hao wondered if she was still using a bewitching spell on him. He wondered if he would have fallen for her in the past. Mingyi had confirmed that the Heavenly Saint sect was after him. They had probably sent someone disguised as an ordinary non-cultivator. It was a little troublesome for him. They wouldn't have sent anyone below the Golden Core realm. However, if he made a move, then he couldn't fool anyone into believing that he was still in the Foundation Establishment realm. Jiang Hao needed to be more careful. After tending to the spirit herbs for a while longer, Jiang Hao decided to leave. Xiao Li had already run off to eat. Nothing was more important to her than food. Fortunately, the Heavenly Note sect wasn't short on food and could nourish her as long as possible. When he was heading back, he saw Cheng Chou near the entrance. Something was different about him. You advanced? Jiang Hao asked. Yes. Cheng Chou smiled. He had made it to the 9th stage of the lifeblood refinement realm. All thanks to you, senior brother Jiang. That's all right, said Jiang Hao. Congratulations. I'll explain to you how to refine your cultivation. After this, it won't take you long to reach the Foundation Establishment realm. Cheng Chou was grateful. The Foundation Establishment realm seemed out of reach. He wouldn't let go of the chance to achieve it. Jiang Hao left. Cheng Chou did have a chance to enter the Foundation Establishment realm soon. He just needed some resources and time. The most difficult part was reaching the Golden Core realm from the Foundation Establishment realm. It was equal to experiencing 9 deaths. Even if Cheng Chou made it to the Golden Core realm, he would be stuck at the early stage, unless he found some opportunity to advance rapidly. For example, Han Ming had encountered a treasure that helped him advance. The same thing had happened to Mu Qi. There was also Liu Xingchen, who had let the true dragon's remnant soul possess his body. However, one had to be as bold and as reckless as Liu Xingchen to let that happen. I wonder how he is doing, Jiang Hao sighed. He found it so hard to believe that he had befriended such a crazy person. Returning to the courtyard, Jiang Hao sat on a wooden chair and took out the 7 Forms of Heavenly Blade book. He hadn't opened it for so many months because he was busy trying to get the talisman right. Since he couldn't use the clear and pure heart ability, he might as well study it. He would be heading out soon, so he needed to learn as much as he could. He studied it till late at night but couldn't understand anything. The 3rd form of the 7 Forms of Heavenly Blade was extremely difficult. The 3rd form was called the Meteor. It was different from the moon-slaying and mountain suppression techniques. He picked up the teapot and was about to pour himself a cup of tea when he realized that the tea was long gone. Jiang Hao hesitated a little and then took out some red azure tea. He hadn't even tasted the tea. He had bought 2 types of the same tea. One had cost him 100 spirit stones and the other, 150. He brewed a pot of the more expensive red azure tea. The fragrance was pleasant. Jiang Hao poured himself a cup and took a sip. It tasted refreshing. This is tasty. Master, pour me a cup too. The spirit beast came bounding up to him. Jiang Hao poured a cup of tea for the beast too. The spirit beast finished it in one gulp. This tea is made especially for a beast like me. Jiang Hao sipped his tea and studied the book. After midnight, he brewed another pot of tea. This time he used the slightly less expensive red azure tea. The color was even redder, and the taste was bitter. Jiang Hao was surprised. So, this was why she frowned last time. I have to stock up on the slightly more expensive version of the tea soon. If Hong Yuye was displeased, he would suffer the consequences. Jiang Hao only returned to his room to cultivate after finishing the tea. He decided to visit the market tomorrow to sell talismans and buy more tea leaves. He had 15 healing talismans and 1,800,000 swords talismans left. He also had a few 10,000 swords talismans and pain-relieving talismans. They could be sold for a few hundred spirit stones. With the 300 spirit stones he had on him, he bought more tea leaves. Then he returned home and began to cultivate. Early the next morning, he woke up and went out to the courtyard. He saw a woman crouching next to the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. She was dressed in a red and white dress. Her hair was fastened by a beautiful hairpin. She looked like something out of an exquisite painting. "Which cultivation realm are you in?" asked Hong Yuye as she gently touched a leaf of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. She hadn't even turned around, but she sensed his presence. "Middle stage of the foundation establishment realm," he said. Hong Yuye didn't even react this time. She was used to his lying nature. "Are you ready to head to the nearby town with me?" she asked. She raised her head and looked at him. "I have been preparing for the past few days. We can go any time," said Jiang. "How? We'll pass by a mine on the way. Do you want to go in and mine for a few days?" she asked. Jiang Hao was speechless. Chapter 119, The Demoness Anger. Chapter 119, The Demoness Anger. Jiang Hao had been thinking about how it would feel so good to mine and collect bubbles. If he could mine for a few days, he could even break through to the primordial spirit realm. Unfortunately, he had no way to mine, so he would have to wait for another year to reach the primordial spirit realm. However, since he had to go out of the sect for a few months, even a year might not be enough to advance. The benefits of mining were great. Sometimes, Jiang Hao wondered how it would have been if he had been thrown into a mine right after being taken into the sect. Maybe he would have advanced to the primordial spirit realm by now. However, there would have been no way to hide his cultivation. That would have been bad. Jiang Hao brushed his thoughts aside. Mining rarely yielded gold bubbles. Till now, only the heavenly fragrance Dao flower had given him a gold bubble. Anyhow, it would be beneficial if he could mine for a few days. He shook his head reluctantly. "Senior, your matter is more important right now. I don't like mining that much. You're so full of lies as always, said Hong Yuye and got up. Get ready. We'll leave in 7 days. May I know where we'll be going? Asked Jiang Hao. Should I prepare anything in advance? He had prepared for this. He had 2,000 miles teleportation talismans, so everything would be all right. You'll know when the time comes. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao. If you back out, you know the consequences. Jiang Hao sighed. He had never been to any nearby towns after joining the sect. He didn't know what to prepare. It seems to be blooming. Hong Yuye sat on a wooden chair and looked at the immortal peach tree. The tree was huge now. It had blossomed. In a few months, the fruits would be ready. Jiang Hao glanced at the tree. Senior, how long do you plan to travel? A month at least. 4 months at most. Is there a problem? She asked. No problem at all. He was only given 3 months. If he wasn't back by then, he would get in trouble. However, Hong Yuye might get angry if he said anything. Make some tea, said Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao felt helpless. Last night, he and the spirit beast had finished all the tea. He had no choice but to brew some ordinary tea. He poured her a cup and braced himself. Bang! A powerful force slammed Jiang Hao against the wall. He at least knew now that he needed to carry some good tea with him for the next few days. Hong Yuye stood up. Where do you plan to wait for me after 7 days? Outside the Heavenly Note sect. All right. If I don't see you there. I know. I'll be there. Make preparations for my flower to be taken care of. Otherwise, you'll face my anger. Understood. After a moment of silence, Hong Yuye spoke again. Use your divine ability on me again. Jiang Hao used the daily appraisal on her. He also hid his energy consumption, as the nameless manual instructed. The results were the same as before. He could only see her name and nothing else. I used it. He looked at Hong Yuye's face but couldn't tell whether she was able to detect it. At a moment, Hong Yuye vanished with the teacup in her hands. Jiang Hao sighed. Why not put down the teacup before you disappear? He muttered. Even though it was just a normal tea set, it had cost him money. He felt that Hong Yuye had a bad habit of taking other people's things away. Jiang Hao needed to prepare for the journey. He decided to earn more spirit stones in the next few days. The day was unusually quiet. Normally, when Hong Yuye left, the spirit beast would be screaming in agony over its bruises. Jiang Hao was puzzled. He realized that the spirit beast was nowhere to be seen. He looked in the distance to see where it had run off to. He saw something splashing in the river, struggling to get out. Hong Yuye probably had blasted him off to the river because it had drooled over the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. The beast was lucky it was alive. Jiang Hao created some talismans. He also stored some spiritual energy in the reappearance of the hidden spirit ability. It might come in handy in the future. He stored 2 attacks, namely moonslaying and mountain suppression, in his wrist guard. 5 days later, Jiang Hao had created quite a few talismans. He sold most of them. He now had 1,100 spirit stones on him. He was lucky that he knew quite a few seniors who wanted talismans. He sold them at 15% lower than the market price. Leng Tian hadn't visited him in the past few days. He had given her a lot of talismans in exchange for the 1,000 miles teleportation talisman. She might not be lacking talismans right now. I'll be leaving the day after tomorrow. I'll buy some tea leaves and go to the law enforcement hall to take on the mission. Jiang Hao had already informed his master that he would be going out of the sect for a while. His master hadn't said anything. Miao Tinglian was surprised to hear that he was heading out, but she didn't say anything. She hadn't asked about Mu Qi again. Occasionally, Jiang Hao saw them working together in the spirit herb garden. It was good that they were getting along fine. Otherwise, the whole garden would be in trouble if they were in conflict. At this moment, Jiang Hao arrived at the depository. After hesitating for a while, he bought the fragrant Snow Queen spring tea for 50 spirit stones for 1 gram. It was cheaper than the red azure tea. 50 spirit stones were a sky-high price for him, but compared to the other types of tea, it was still cheaper. He spent 600 spirit stones on the tea. He saved the rest of the spirit stones. He needed it for the trip. Jiang Hao then headed to the law enforcement hall. He was surprised when he received the mission for recruitment. He had expected that they would give him a mission to deal with a traitor. This person has caught the eye of the law enforcement hall. He is very talented, but the possibility of him agreeing to be recruited here is very low, said the senior who gave him the mission. You can choose another mission if you want. That's all right. I'll take this. Jiang Hao couldn't refuse. Senior sister, may I ask what sect this person is from? The Bright Moon sect. Chapter 120. Chapter 120. Raising a dragon in his body. Chapter 120. Raising a dragon in his body. Although the Bright Moon sect wasn't a huge sect, it was stronger than ordinary sects. The Heavenly Note sect wasn't as big as the Bright Moon sect. However, it was too far away for the sect to affect Jiang Hao if anything went wrong. He didn't expect the Heavenly Note sect to send recruiters to such a place. Jiang Hao could snatch the person away from there, but he feared that he would be intercepted on the way back. If it was the Black Heaven sect, the Sunset Immortal sect, or the Wind Lightning sect, he could use the advantage from last time to snatch the person away. These three sects were not weaker than the Heavenly Note sect. Instead, their foundation was much stronger. If it wasn't for the fact that many of the other sects' experts were imprisoned in the Heavenly Note sect, the saber strike would have brought disaster. However, it was done. The Heavenly Note sect had made an enemy of them. The Black Heaven sect targeted Jiang Hao because of Shenyuan Tai. The Sunset Immortal sect wanted revenge because he had killed Yun Ruo. Jiang Hao sighed. Why is it considered a crime to kill the pies they sent in the first place? After leaving the law enforcement hall, Jiang Hao shook his head and sighed wearily. In just 2 years, he had advanced to the peak of the Golden Core realm and managed to provoke Heavenly Joy Pavilion, the 100 Bones Forest, the Sunset Immortal sect, the Black Heaven sect, and the Heavenly Saint sect. He decided to return to the Spirit Herb Garden and ask Cheng Cho about the things he needed to prepare if he was heading out. Junior brother Jiang, are you going out? Liu Xingchen greeted him. Jiang Hao was shocked to see him. There was something strange about his aura. It no longer felt like he was in the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao was curious, so he used the daily appraisal on him. Jiang Hao was stunned. What mission did you receive? Asked Liu Xingchen. Smiled. I have to recruit someone from the Bright Moon sect. Wow, the Bright Moon sect? Asked Liu Xingchen. The Bright Moon sect selects their disciples from very early on. It is said that the Clear Sky School once snatched one of their disciples, and the master of the Bright Moon sect personally went to get them back. Junior brother Jiang, you will need to be very careful. Jiang Hao understood that he was mostly likely to fail this time, but he didn't care. What he cared about were the 3,000 spirit stones he would owe the law enforcement hall. The Bright Moon sect seemed to be more powerful than he had expected. How strong is the Bright Moon sect? Jiang Hao asked curiously. What do you think about the Black Heaven sect and the Sunset Immortal sect? Asked Liu Xingchen. They're stronger than us, said Jiang Hao. Liu Xingchen nodded. The Bright Moon sect is stronger than the two. They have a good foundation and have stood tall in the cultivation world for thousands of years. It's just that they have their own share of problems. On the other hand, we have 12 branches that get along well, more or less. But what is a foundation of less than 100 years when compared to something that has lasted for thousands of years? That is why it was troublesome when you were involved in problems regarding the Black Heaven sect and the Sunset Immortal sect. Nodded. He was in the peak of the Golden Core realm, but he was in no state to face those sects that he had offended. Every sect had people who advanced very quickly and were exceptionally strong. Jiang Hao couldn't face all of them alone. Liu Xingchen was a perfect example of that. Jiang Hao had met him just 2 years ago when he was in the peak stage of the Golden Core realm. Now, he was in the primordial spirit realm. But what does that have to do with the Bright Moon sect? Jiang Hao was puzzled. Liu Xingchen smiled. The Black Heaven sect, the Sunset Immortal sect, and the Wind Lightning sect might not even reach half the strength of the Bright Moon. sect even if they banded together. That's why you need to be careful, junior brother Jiang. If you don't succeed in recruiting the said disciple, you'll have to pay compensation to the law enforcement hall. However, if you succeed, you might get in trouble with the Bright Moon sect. Liu Xingchen left after that. Jiang Hao sighed. Is the law enforcement hall deliberately handing out impossible missions because they need money? 3,000 spirit stones. Jiang Hao watched Liu Xingchen leave. Liu Xingchen was not as simple as he appeared to be. He actually had a dragon possessing his body. He had consumed a part of that dragon because he was bored and wanted to do something. Just couldn't believe it. In the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao met Cheng Chou. To a nearby town, said Cheng Chou. I don't think you need to prepare too many things if it's just nearby. But what if you lack things? Then you can always visit the homes of some dignitaries. You just have to do whatever they tell you to. It is great if you meet someone who belongs to our sect. They'll help you out. Jiang Hao nodded. He didn't want to rely on others because he didn't have that habit. Also, Hong Yuye was coming along. If you want to do everything by yourself, then you need to have some silver on you, said Cheng Chou. He handed Jiang Hao some silver and gold coins. This might help. Jiang Hao received about 100 silver and 10 gold coins. Do you have some copper coins? Yes. Cheng Chou gave him some copper coins. Senior brother Jiang, will you be gone soon? Yes, in the next few days. Jiang Hao nodded. From the moment he accepted the mission, anyone who paid attention to him probably knew that he was going out. The time limit was 3 months. How long will you be gone for? Asked Cheng Chou. The disciples of the Candlelight Pill Hall have been relying on senior brother and senior sister to cover the cost of fostering spirit herbs. It's a debt collection matter. It's not your concern, but maybe you could handle it after you return. Debt collection? Jiang Hao was somewhat surprised. It wasn't his responsibility, but it did have some connection to him. If it's not urgent, then wait until I come back before dealing with it. Cheng Chou nodded in agreement. He had no power as an outer disciple to intervene in such matters involving inner disciples, unless he had extraordinary talent. Master, are you finally taking me along to show off my great demonic charm? Said the spirit beast excitedly. You stay here and take care of the house, said Jiang Hao. All right, said the spirit beast. Master, aren't you lonely? With me, a magnificent beast you've raised, there won't be anyone on the path who would dare offend you. Take me along, and your reputation will shine. Jiang Hao ignored the spirit beast and made some preparations. 2 days later, Jiang Hao stood in the courtyard and activated the 1,000 miles teleportation talisman. Chapter 121. Chapter 121. The Demoness takes him back home. Chapter 121. The Demoness takes him back home. The Cliff of Broken Hearts Spirit Herb Garden. Miao Tinglian stood at the entrance of the garden, feeling happy. Junior brother Jiang is not here, so this place has finally become mine. He is a good person, but his knowledge of spirit herbs is limited. I need to make improvements in the garden before he returns. There are many precious spirit herbs here, many of which require suitable soil. If you mess up and cause problems, you could be expelled from the sect. Don't cause trouble for me, please, said Mu Qi sternly. You can scold me all you want. I'm not afraid. I know a lot when it comes to spirit herbs, but my knowledge still can't be compared to the people in the 100 Bones Forest. I didn't expect there to be such formidable individuals, Miao Tinglian said nervously. Is this kind of technique really possible? Mu Qi was stunned to hear Miao Tinglian's explanation. At first, he didn't think so, but Jiang Hao suddenly left the mountain. Maybe he had left because of this reason. Suppressing someone's cultivation with spirit herbs. That was unheard of. I'm not sure either, but is it really okay for junior brother Jiang to leave the sect? Miao Tinglian asked. Mu Qi shook his head. That's his choice. Master didn't say anything. Miao Tinglian understood that the path of cultivation was difficult. Sometimes, life and death were decided by someone else. Ultimately, it all depended on how strong one could become. You stay here and take care of things. I'm going to the mine. It may start operating again in a few months, said Mu Qi. He had always been in charge of the mines. He had been avoiding it due to his injuries, but now he was all right. Why do you need to go to the mine? Can't you apply to work in the spirit herb garden? Miao Tinglian asked. It's not necessary to oversee the spirit herb garden all the time. As long as there is an inner disciple here, it's enough. The sect has many areas that need management. If I applied to work here, junior brother Jiang would have to go to the mines. I don't think my master will allow that. Miao Tinglian nodded. In the forest outside the Heavenly Note sect, the space was distorted. Then, a figure fell out of the distortion. With a thud, he fell to the ground. Jiang Hao sat up on the ground, holding his head. He was dizzy. Using the talisman makes me feel so dizzy. He never expected that using this talisman would make him so dizzy that he wouldn't be able to even stand. If someone in the Golden Core realm was affected this way, the talisman might cause even more damage to those in lower cultivation realms. Perhaps there is a minimum threshold to use this talisman. After recovering a little, he stood up slowly and tried to figure out where he had landed. I wonder how far this place is from the Heavenly Note sect. 500 miles away, said a sudden voice. Jiang Hao's heart missed a beat. He tried to calm himself. He knew that voice. It was Hong Yuye. He turned his head and saw a woman dressed in a red and white sitting on a tree branch. When Jiang Hao saw her, she got off the tree. She had tied her hair up in a simple bun. There was a belt at her waist. She wore a long dress that reached her ankles. Simple and unadorned. Just perfect for traveling. Senior, where do you intend to go? Jiang Hao asked, now fully recovered. Hidden Cloud Prefecture, Hong Yuye said. Hidden Cloud Prefecture was closest to the Heavenly Note sect. The Heavenly Note sect was located in the southern part, surrounded by 16 spacious prefectures in total. Each prefecture was vast, and there were numerous towns and villages within them. When the Heavenly Note sect wanted to capture someone, they usually headed to the Hidden Cloud Prefecture or its vicinity. With his cultivation at the Golden Core realm, he could reach a town in Hidden Cloud Prefecture in about a day if he flew on his sword. Senior, do you plan to fly there? Jiang Hao asked. Hong Yuye glanced at Jiang Hao. A red light appeared, enveloping both of them. In the blink of an eye, the surroundings changed. When he regained his senses, he found himself on a road, not far from the town. Many people walked in and out of the town. The words Fallen City were written on the city gates. This was a city under the jurisdiction of Hidden Cloud Prefecture, and it was one of the most prosperous cities in the area. With his cultivation at the Golden Core realm, it would have taken him more than a day to reach here. But under Hong Yuye's power, they arrived in the blink of an eye. He suddenly realized that no matter how many talismans he made, he could never escape her clutches if she decided to hunt him. Fallen City was familiar to him. Let's go. Hong Yuye took the lead and walked forward. Jiang Hao followed. Senior, shouldn't you disguise yourself? He asked hesitantly. Disguise? Do I look ugly to you? Hong Yuye stared at Jiang Hao. Her aura surged. Senior, I apologize. I didn't mean to offend you. Your exquisite beauty is captivating as always. Many people might be attracted to you. It might bring trouble, said Jiang Hao. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao for a long time. Then she continued walking. Are you worried that others would cause trouble for me, or it will cause trouble for you? Naturally, I'm worried about you, senior. Jiang Hao followed behind, feeling helpless. Lies, said Hong Yuye coldly. Jiang Hao remained silent and followed her. He surveyed his surroundings, afraid that these people would provoke Hong Yuye somehow. The higher the cultivation level, the more ordinary people are looked down upon. In the eyes of powerful people, the lives of others are as insignificant as mayflies. Hong Yuye had formidable strength and wouldn't hesitate to kill anyone. However, what surprised him was that they had already arrived at the city gate, yet no one paid them any attention. He was relieved. It must be Hong Yuye's doing. She must have cast some spell to make them seem ordinary. I'll stay in Fallen City for 3 days. Find a place to stay, said Hong Yuye when they were in the city square. There should be a decent inn ahead, said Jiang Hao as he pointed to the road ahead. Hong Yuye walked ahead. Have you been here before? Maybe, Jiang Hao whispered as he looked at the road ahead. He had indeed been here before, but it felt both familiar and unfamiliar. It was similar yet different from his impression of the streets. It was probably due to the changes over the past years. This place was his hometown. He had lived in this city until he was 5 years old. At first, he couldn't remember properly, but he recalled everything as he walked deeper into the city. Previously, he had thought of coming here to check on his family. His cultivation hadn't been strong enough then. Who would have thought he would be there so soon? Maybe he could go home and see what had happened to them. He didn't remember much about that home, only that he used to help fetch water, chop firewood, and cook in the courtyard. Occasionally, he would endure his stepmother's scolding. He didn't have many pleasant memories of this place. He clearly remembered the year of famine, when his stepmother had given him 2 steamed buns and drove him out of the house. After that, she sold him to the Heavenly Note sect. Jiang Hao was filled with mixed emotions. Chapter 122, Returning Home. Chapter 122, Returning Home. Here. While Jiang Hao was still feeling nostalgic, the voice of Hong Yuye suddenly pulled him back to reality. They were standing in front of an inn. The board had Cloud Inn written on it. Jiang Hao nodded. He remembered that he used to dream of coming here to eat, but he had no money at that time. It was very surreal to feel that he finally had the money to do so. Jiang Hao and Hong Yuye stood in front of the counter. 2 rooms? Asked the middle-aged innkeeper. Jiang Hao was somewhat surprised. He hadn't thought that anyone else could see Hong Yuye. Apparently, she wasn't entirely invisible. Or 1 room for the 2 of you? Asked the innkeeper cautiously. Jiang Hao glanced at Hong Yuye in fear. However, she appeared as calm as ever. She felt his gaze on her and turned to look at him. It looked like she was mocking him. Jiang Hao requested 2 rooms instead of 1. The Cloud Inn had 6 floors. The first floor was the dining hall. The second and third floors had ordinary rooms. They were called under Cloud. The 4th and 5th floors had medium-sized rooms called mid-cloud, and the 6th floor was called above cloud. Jiang Hao asked for 2 rooms on the 6th floor. If he was alone, he wouldn't mind staying in a simple room. But it was different with Hong Yuye by his side. A small mistake would cost him his life. They got their keys and headed up. Creak. When they opened the door to the room, a pleasant fragrance wafted out. It was an exquisite room with beds, tables, chairs, and a dressing table. There was a folding screen on one side with a painting on it. Behind the folding screen was a wooden tub for bathing. A table and some chairs were placed by the window to provide a scenic view of the city below. Jiang Hao walked to the window and looked down. He could see the main road. Hong Yuye walked over and sat down on a chair, then pointed to the teapot. Jiang Hao understood. He took out the Snow Queen Spring brand of tea leaves he had bought before. He then brewed a pot of tea and poured her a cup. Hong Yuye looked at the teacup and then glanced at Jiang Hao. Is she dissatisfied with the tea? Wondered Jiang Hao. Senior, what is it that you want to do in Fallen City? Asked Jiang Hao, trying to change the topic. I came here for this, she said and placed a stone tablet on the table. This can transmit secret messages. The message says that there will be a secret meeting in this city within 3 days. Who sent the message? Jiang Hao asked. I don't know, we need to find that out, said Hong Yuye as she pushed the tablet toward him. You, specifically. I'll teach you how to decipher the message later. Jiang Hao had no choice but to accept the stone tablet. He didn't know why she cared about the stone tablet and the message within it. The sun was shining brightly outside. It was scorchingly hot. Go buy an umbrella for me, Hong Yuye said. Jiang Hao nodded and headed out. Standing at the entrance of the inn, he felt a bit sentimental. He had intended to make a trip to his house. Now seemed like a perfect time. His house wasn't far from here. It had been 17 years since he had visited his home. He didn't know how his family was. Jiang Hao couldn't understand what he was feeling. He wanted to go and take a look. However, He didn't understand why he was so eager. Was it because he wanted to make sure they were doing well, or did he want to see them suffering like they used to? Perhaps he would understand once he saw them. Will they recognize me? Will they be shocked to see me? There were many questions he wanted answers to. Yet, at the same time, he just didn't want to find out. After a moment, he walked toward his house. He passed by a place selling oil paper umbrellas, and he bought one with red patterns. Hong Yuye was always dressed in red, so he assumed she probably liked the color. After putting the umbrella away, he continued on his way. A short while later, he left the main road and headed toward the row of houses. The area wasn't as bustling and lively as it used to be. Jiang Hao stopped at a corner of an alley. A few paces ahead, he saw a house. It was the place where he had spent his childhood. He hesitated. He stood there and stared at the house for a while. Jiang Hao hoped he could catch a glimpse of the people who lived there. He wanted to know how they were. He waited a long time, but no one appeared outside the house. They probably won't recognize me. I was 5 when I was sold. I'm 22 now. Jiang Hao walked to the house and reached out a hand to knock on the door. He couldn't bring himself to knock on the door. Jiang Hao's heart raced. He couldn't face his family. He took a deep breath to calm himself and knocked. Jiang Hao stood still and waited. After a short while, footsteps could be heard from inside. "Who is it?" asked an old woman. The door opened slowly, and the old woman peeked out from the crack. "Who are you?" Jiang Hao was taken aback. "You're funny," she said. "You knock on my door and ask me who I am?" The old woman chuckled. Jiang Hao was confused. "I'm sorry. Isn't this the Jiang family's residence?" "Jiang family?" The old woman thought for a moment. "I think it used to be." "Used to be?" Jiang Hao was surprised. "Come in, child. My old man knows more about it than me." The old woman opened the door wide and let him in. "Thank you." Jiang Hao bowed gratefully. He saw the familiar courtyard. It had hardly changed at all. He's in the backyard. The old woman closed the door and led Jiang Hao toward the backyard. Jiang Hao looked around. He passed by a stone table. He remembered sitting there and sneaking food away. As he approached the living quarters, he recalled his stepmother's voice yelling at him. "All you know is to eat," she'd say. "Hurry and get some work done too." In the backyard, Jiang Hao saw that firewood was piled up in a corner. He was familiar with that place too. He used to chop firewood the whole day and fall asleep tired there. Jiang Hao felt bittersweet with all the memories. He had wanted to see his family, but everything had changed. This person was asking for the Jiang family. "You talk to him." The old woman brought Jiang Hao to meet an old man and then left. Jiang Hao saw an elderly man who was chopping firewood. The man looked at Jiang Hao in astonishment. "Looking for the Jiang family, you say?" "Yes." Jiang Hao nodded. "I hope you can provide me with some information about them. It's been many years." The man smiled. "Let me see." Jiang Hao took the man's axe from his hand. "Take your time to think about it. I'll help chop the firewood." "Very kind of you. Judging from your attire, you don't seem like an ordinary person from around here," said the old man. "Have you ever chopped firewood before?" Even if Jiang Hao liked keeping a low profile, the old man was right. His attire wasn't ordinary. Chapter 123, Chapter 123, Clarity of Mind. Chapter 123, Clarity of Mind. Jiang Hao smiled. "I used to chop firewood here, when I was around 4 years old." "Right here." Jiang Hao hefted the axe to gauge its weight, and then swung it on the block of wood, chopping it in two. "4 years old," exclaimed the man. "At that age, it's difficult to even hold a knife, let alone an axe to chop firewood." "It was difficult, but I got used to it eventually," said Jiang Hao. 10 years had passed since then. He realized he held no contempt or resentment toward his family. He didn't even remember his stepmother yelling at him that clearly. He had almost forgotten how she looked. "Looks like you were born poor." The old man was in disbelief. Jiang Hao felt as if he had returned to his childhood. Unfortunately, I don't remember much. Why are you here to inquire about the Jiang family? The old man looked at Jiang Hao. What's your relationship with them? Jiang Hao paused and looked at the old man. They are my family. The old man was a little shocked. That's impossible. When I bought this house from them, the man selling me the house didn't mention any children. I know, said Jiang Hao. When I was 5 years old, I was sold. I just happened to visit this city for the first time after that. I was hoping to find out about them. The old man looked at Jiang Hao in surprise. Jiang Hao continued chopping the firewood. How long has it been? 17 years. I bought this house 16 years ago. The old man thought for a moment. They were moving to some other place, so they sold me the house. They sold the house a year after I left. Jiang Hao felt a little bitter about it. Were they worried I might seek them out for revenge or something? Did they say where they were moving to? Jiang Hao asked. No. The old man shook his head. But I think they might have moved to a nearby town. You should look around. Jiang Hao didn't respond. It was impossible for him to wander off. He had solely come to this town because of Hong Yuye. He was lucky that he had made it here alive. He had made too many enemies. It was close to impossible for Jiang Hao to find a safe place now. If his enemies knew about his family, they might use it against him. This time, he was not worried because Hong Yuye was with him. She was indeed powerful. I remember that there was a famine 17 years ago. The entire city was struggling, said the old man. Jiang Hao nodded. Yes. I remember a bit about those days. Do you hate them? Asked the old man. I don't really hate them, but I do feel a little resentful, said Jiang Hao. The old man smiled. If it was anyone else, they would hate their family for selling them at such a young age. Jiang Hao didn't say anything and quietly chopped the firewood. He finished chopping the remaining firewood and dusted his clothes. Thank you for the information you gave me. I should leave now. Let me see you to the door, said the old man and walked him to the main door. Jiang Hao kept reminiscing about the past. He had very vague memories of his childhood. The lace felt familiar, but he couldn't remember anything vividly. Jiang Hao felt an inexplicable sense of loss. He bowed to the elderly couple and left. He heard the door close behind him. Only then did he turn back to look at the closed door. This was the place where he had grown up. He felt as though he had returned to the time when he used to be a child in that house. That year, the year of the famine, the door had remained firmly closed like it did now. Jiang Hao had felt that this house would remain here, and he could somehow come back to it. But now, he felt as though he had really lost a home. There was no place to go back to. He would never come back here. Jiang Hao bowed again in goodbye. He then turned around and left. Was he able to completely let his past go? Maybe not. However, he knew that looking back didn't do anyone any good. He had to keep moving forward. Jiang Hao finally felt a bittersweet sense of peace. He accepted his fate. He had come a long way compared to the miserable child he used to be. He had increased so much in his cultivation and wasn't far away from achieving the primordial spirit realm. Jiang Hao hadn't gained such maturity even when toiling for half a year to train his mind. This short moment of revisiting his past had given him the clarity he had been working toward. Jiang Hao walked along the main road. He saw many people getting along with their days. The hawkers advertised their products. His clear and pure heart had been dormant. However, he felt a sense of clarity in that ability that he had never felt before. What a wonderful feeling! Jiang Hao decided to go back to Hong Yuye. He stopped when he passed by a tea shop. The tea set in the inn seemed to be very ordinary, and many people might have used it before. He hesitated for a moment before walking into the tea shop. "What kind of tea set do you want?" asked the shopkeeper. Jiang Hao looked around and finally saw a tea set that was red. The color was faint and not too striking. The workmanship was exquisite. "How much for this one?" he asked. 15 taels. Jiang Hao bought it. As he headed back to the inn, he came across a pastry shop. The aroma wafted out of the shop. As a child, He had dreamt about buying something from that pastry shop. He had been too poor to do so. After some hesitation, he bought some pastries. His childhood dreams were getting fulfilled today. Jiang Hao was walking along the road when he suddenly turned to look at an old alleyway at the side. Something flew over, and he caught it. It was a stone. He looked at it closely. Jiang Hao then used the daily appraisal ability on it. Great Thousand God Sect. Jiang Hao was puzzled. Why would the Great Thousand God Sect contact him? Jiang Hao returned to the inn. Perhaps Hong Yuye would have an answer to this. Please bring a basin of water to room 1 on the above cloud, said Jiang Hao to a server. After that, he headed to Hong Yuye's room. The door opened automatically. Jiang Hao saw Hong Yuye sitting in front of the window. He turned to look at him with an amused smile. I thought you ran away. Chapter 124. Chapter 124. Going out late at night with the Demoness. Chapter 124. Going out late at night with the Demoness. I was delayed. Jiang Hao walked to her. He was in the least danger with her. He wouldn't risk his life by running away. Jiang Hao realized that Hong Yuye hadn't touched her tea. Hong Yuye stared at Jiang Hao for a second longer but didn't say anything. Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. He handed her the umbrella. He then went to wash the new tea set and placed it on the table. He then brewed some tea he had bought recently. Hong Yuye watched Jiang Hao's work. She didn't say anything. Jiang Hao placed a fresh cup of tea in front of her. She lifted it to her lips and took a sip. You're quite good at this. Hong Yuye glanced at Jiang Hao. Of course, I will do my best to serve you, said Jiang Hao reluctantly. You're also quite good at lying. Jiang Hao didn't say anything. There was a knock on the door. Jiang Hao walked to the door, took the basin of water from the server's hands, and then closed the door behind him. He placed the basin on the table. I found something. He took out the stone, crushed it, and placed the pieces in the basin of water. The water began to ripple and bubble. There was something written on the surface. See you at the Mountain God Temple outside the city at midnight. Take out the stone tablet I gave you, said Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao was a little surprised. He could roughly guess why he had received the message from the Great Thousand God Sect. The half of the stone tablet had been on him at that time. When he took out the stone tablet, Hong Yuye told him to press his palms to it. Use all your strength and try to sense it. Jiang Hao was puzzled, but he did as he was told. A moment later, it fragmented into 9 stone pieces. There were also 9 red lights around it. 1 red light was on a stone piece. Push the stone to the place where the red light is connected, instructed Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao pushed the stone toward the red light. When the 9 stone pieces were aligned to the 9 red pinpricks of light, a rune was revealed. It was as though a door had opened. A powerful force swept out of it. Soon, he understood that there should be another of the stone pieces somewhere nearby. He also realized how the people from the Great Thousand God Sect had found him. He felt a little relieved. At least, it hadn't happened when he was at his old house. He didn't want to put the elderly couple in danger. Senior, what is this? Asked Jiang Hao. The stone and the message belong to those in the Great Thousand God Sect. As for what they're for, nobody knows at this point, said Hong Yuye. There are other stone tablets. Where is it? Is it in this city? Hong Yuye nodded. They must be in surrounding towns. We'll have to search them one by one. Jiang Hao was a little shocked. It was such a surprising coincidence. He wanted to find out more about his family. This way, he could do that too. Jiang Hao suspected that Hong Yuye must be spying on him. This sheer coincidence seemed very timely. He didn't dare ask her that, though. Jiang Hao packed his things and planned to go back to his room to rest. Since he had gained clarity of mind, he needed to refine his cultivation and his abilities. He took the teapot with him. After some hesitation, he left half the pastry for Hong Yuye. After Jiang Hao left, Hong Yuye stared at the pastry for a long time. She broke off a piece and put it in her mouth. She frowned slightly. Hong Yuye sipped her tea and then coughed a little. Jiang Hao returned to his room. He then made some tea for himself and ate the pastry. He was a little disappointed. When he was young, the pastry looked divine from outside the window. What he wouldn't have done for a piece of it. However, it tasted just ordinary. He ate it all anyway and drank the tea. The tea had cost him 50 spirit stones. The taste was worse than the Snow Queen spring tea. He was surprised Hong Yuye hadn't slammed him against the door for making her tea like this. Jiang Hao then began to refine his cultivation. The clarity of his mind made it easier for him to calm down and focus on his cultivation. "It's almost time," he muttered. Jiang Hao didn't know what he would find at the mountain god temple, and he wondered whether his cultivation would be enough to protect himself if he faced danger. He was only in the late stage of the Golden Core realm, after all. "Let's go," said a voice from outside his window. He turned to look. Hong Yuye was hovering in the air outside his window. Jiang Hao got on his flying sword and followed her. In a short while, the two arrived outside the city. The mountain god temple was just up ahead. The mountain god temple looked slightly dilapidated, but there was a fire burning inside. It seemed that someone was inside. Jiang Hao sensed that there were 3 people, one in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm and 2 in the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. This surprised him. He didn't feel that they were someone from the Great Thousand God sect. "Senior." He looked at Hong Yuye. "You don't have to look at me. I only followed you to watch," said Hong Yuye. "I'm not going to lift a finger. You got the message, so go in." "But senior," Jiang Hao was worried. However, before he could say anything further, he felt a powerful aura envelop him. "Do you have a problem?" asked Hong Yuye. "No. Not at all." The powerful aura dissipated. Jiang Hao sighed. "Do I have to fight alone if it comes to it?" He still felt like the people inside were not from the Great Thousand God sect. Maybe the message had been a fake. He did not sense anything for now, so he waited outside. Past midnight, Jiang Hao sensed the stone tablets nearby. The enemy must be nearby. There should be a reason they are luring people here. Jiang Hao hesitated and then walked toward the mountain god temple. His arrival was quickly detected by the person in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. However, the other person did not make a move. When Jiang Hao reached right in front of the temple, somebody spoke in a deep voice. "The 2 of you are here to stay." Jiang Hao walked in with Hong Yuye by his side. As soon as they entered, Jiang Hao felt that the person had activated a restrictive formation around them. It trapped them inside. These 3 came prepared, thought Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao looked at the center of the temple. A man and a woman were peacefully setting up a place to make a small fire. They were momentarily surprised when they saw Jiang Hao enter. At the very front was a middle-aged man. He was meditating with his eyes closed. Jiang Hao knew that he had been the one to speak. Jiang Hao sensed danger. His study of the Nameless Manual had taught him to sense people's aura. Jiang Hao activated the daily appraisal without hesitation. Chapter 125, Chapter 125, Being Too Cautious. Chapter 125, Being Too Cautious. Jiang Hao finally understood. The person who had lured him was always hiding here. He had neglected everything else because of the stone tablet. "Fellow disciple, are you not going to sit?" Po Lang opened his eyes. "No, thanks." Jiang Hao took out his half-moon blade. "I'm only here for some work. I don't need to stay here." Po Lang smiled and looked at Jiang Hao. "The night is long. Why don't we sit down and talk?" Jiang Hao didn't want to waste any time. He wouldn't have minded sitting down with the person at any other time. This time, Hong Yuye was with him. The longer he delayed, the more dangerous it would be for him. "I'll make it short." Jiang Hao looked at Po Lang coldly. "Do you have the secret message tablet? Do you know who is behind the stone tablets?" The entire mountain god temple fell silent. The only sound was the crackling of the fire. "Fellow disciple, what are you talking about?" Po Lang asked. Jiang Hao remained calm. Po Lang fell silent. "How could you tell?" "Stop pretending and get to the point," said Jiang Hao. Although the stone tablets are used to transmit messages, they don't belong to those who use them. You two are really bold going around trying to offend people, said Po Lang. Do you know where the other stone tablets are? Or do you know who we will offend? Jiang Hao asked again. I know a little about it, but why should I tell you? Po Lang slowly stood up. You are only in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm, while that woman is in the late stage. Why should I tell you what you want to know? Clang. Jiang Hao unsheathed his half-moon blade. The demonic sound 1,000 miles circulated. He arrived in front of Po Lang in the blink of an eye. The sudden attack surprised Po Lang. What terrified him was that he actually felt a chill when Jiang Hao slashed at him with his saber. He activated his protective Dharma treasure. However, the treasure shattered as the saber swung at him. Boom! The knife landed on Po Lang's neck, and the mountain god stone statue behind him shattered. Are you willing to tell me now? Asked Jiang Hao. You, Po Lang was in disbelief. You aren't in the Foundation establishment. Clang. The blade flashed and Po Lang's neck was cut open. Blood spurted out. Tell me, where are the other stone tablets? Who is behind this? Jiang Hao asked. I don't know much about the people behind this, said Po Lang with difficulty. Go on, said Jiang Hao. I hid my stone tablet somewhere else. You didn't notice it because it was too far away, said Po Lang. Jiang Hao knew he was lying. Where are the others? The other stone tablets are distributed throughout the Hidden Cloud Prefecture. I only know that there are traces of them in 2 places. One is in the neighboring Heavenly Earth City, and the other is in a small sect. At this moment, the 2 other people in their Foundation establishment realm launched a sneak attack on Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao sighed. Why even bother? He slashed at Po Lang. He used the first form of Heavenly Blade, Moon Slaying. Po Lang's head was severed from his shoulders. It killed him instantly. Po Lang spent his last moments in disbelief. He hadn't even finished telling Jiang Hao about the other stone tablet, and yet he had killed him. After Po Lang's death, the 2 others fell silent. Jiang Hao was a little surprised. He wondered if the clones had independent thoughts. He turned to them and raised his saber. He killed the woman with 1 slash. The man tried to escape. He used the moonslaying technique once again. After that, he stabbed Po Lang twice to make sure he was really dead. Jiang Hao stayed there for a moment. He wanted to make sure their spirits weren't extending to a new clone and feeding it. Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief when he found out that it wasn't so. Hong Yuye just watched everything in silence. When Jiang Hao started to search for storage treasures, she said, Aren't you being too cautious? The cultivation world is a very dangerous place. It's only right to be careful. Jiang Hao picked up the storage treasure. He found a mark on it. He wiped it away and opened the treasure. Jiang Hao found 3,623 spirit stones inside. He had 400 spirit stones on him. He now had around 4,100 spirit stones. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh. The most profitable thing in the cultivation world was still robbing other people. After collecting the spirit stones, he skimmed through the rest of the things. He found some pills, but none of them were of any use to him. The spirit pills below the level of the peak of the Golden Core realm were of no use to him. He could only sell those. Jiang Hao suddenly recalled that he had a lot of pills on him. He wanted to find an opportunity to sell those. If he could save up to 10,000 spirit stones on the trip, he could probably head back and continue awakening the spirit beast's bloodline. He also found a box and a sword. Hong Yuye waved her hand and 2 Foundation establishment storage magic treasures appeared in her hands. After checking it, she casually threw it away. Have you found it? She asked Jiang Hao. Yes. Jiang Hao nodded. He showed her the small box and the sword. This box can block being detected. The stone tablet is probably in it. Jiang Hao examined the sword. When he unsheathed it, it gave off strange energy fluctuations. The sword glowed with a faint blue light. It was like the calm surface of a still lake. The craftsmanship was exquisite. Jiang Hao used his spiritual energy and found that it could completely withstand the power peak of the Golden Core realm. It was a good sword. How many spirit stones would it cost for a sword like this? 10,000? 20,000? He was a little worried. Spiritual swords were expensive, but they were not easy to sell. He put away the sword. There was a boom and the box flipped open. Hong Yuye had opened it. There was a stone tablet inside. The stone tablet flew to Hong Yuye's hands. Just when they were about to leave, they heard footsteps outside. "Thief, come out. You stole my spirit sword. Don't even think about escaping from this place alive." Jiang Hao was stunned. Jiang Hao and Hong Yuye walked out of the temple. There was a man and two women outside. The man was dressed in white and had a powerful aura. He looked cold and aloof. One of the women was dressed in blue and the other in white. Jiang Hao tried to find out their cultivation realms. The man and the woman in white were at the peak of the Golden Core realm. The blue-robed woman was slightly weaker than an early-stage Golden Core realm cultivator. These three people were powerful. How were there so many Golden Core realm cultivators in this place? Chapter 126, Chapter 126, Getting Rich Overnight. Chapter 126, Getting Rich Overnight. Jiang Hao was surprised. The blue-robed woman looked at Jiang Hao and Hong Yuye. "Who are you?" she asked. "Who are you?" Jiang Hao asked her back. The appearance of these people made him feel helpless. He didn't want to fight them all. They weren't weak, after all. He was worried that Hong Yuye might do something, but when he glanced at her, she seemed as indifferent as ever. "Where is the thief?" "He stole my sword." "Are you with him?" asked the blue-robed woman. She thought she was facing two people in their foundation establishment realm, so she was confident. "Junior Sister Lan, don't be like that." The man at the back reprimanded her. He turned to Jiang Hao and bowed. "Hello." Junior Sister Lan said someone stole her sword. He was supposed to be hiding here in the temple. "Have you seen him?" "It must be inside." "I can sense my sword here," said Lan impatiently. Jiang Hao sighed inwardly and took out the sword. "Is this the sword you're looking for?" Lan was going to say something, but the man, Fang Jin, stopped her. "This is indeed the sword. We didn't expect it would fall into your hands. How about this? I have a heavenly rejuvenation pill with me. Can I exchange that for the sword? I'm sure it'll be of some use to you." The man handed Jiang Hao the pill. He recognized it immediately. Pills like these cost 7,000 spirit stones. Jiang Hao nodded and handed them the sword. Lan heaved a sigh of relief. She didn't understand why Fang Jin had stopped her from speaking. She felt it was such a waste to give away such an important and valuable pill. "Is there anything else?" Jiang Hao asked. The three people still blocked the path. "There is indeed a small matter," said Fang Jin. "We need to talk about something with P.O. Lang. I wonder if you could tell us where he went." "He was in the temple," said Jiang Hao and walked forward. Hong Yuye didn't say anything but followed behind him. "He is just in the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. How can he be so calm in front of us?" said Lan indignantly. "Don't try to cause any trouble." "I don't think they are as simple as they look," said the white-robed woman. "Let's go in and take a look," said Fang Jin. "There is a formation. When we rushed here, the formation seemed to lose its effectiveness. But we need to be careful," said the white-robed woman. Fang Jin nodded. He was the first to enter the temple. Even if he was in the Golden Core realm, he did not dare to be careless. He was stunned. "Senior brother Fang, is something wrong?" asked Lan from behind him. "Nothing's wrong," said Fang Jin. "Why were you in there for a while then?" asked Lan. She followed them inside. They saw P.O. Lang's corpse on the ground. Lan stared at it in disbelief. Other than the damage to the stone statue at the back, there is no other sign of a fighting that went on here, said the white-robed woman. He was killed in one move. This person was at the peak of the Golden Core realm. He was powerful, said Fang Jin. The white-robed woman was deep in thought. Even I might not be able to do this. The person who attacked P.O. Lang used a saber. Who did it? Lan asked and glanced at them. The two people from before. Who else? Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief when he finally entered the city. Why didn't you kill them too? Asked Hong Yuye. They are from the Bright Moon sect. I saw their jade plates, said Jiang Hao. Killing them would have a huge impact. They don't know us, so I saw no need to silence them. Aren't you supposed to be in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm? Hong Yuye asked. Jiang Hao was speechless. He had completely forgotten that he was supposed to pretend to be in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Hong Yuye gave him an amused smile and disappeared from the spot. A voice rang in his ear. Head to Heavenly Earth City the day after tomorrow. Jiang Hao looked at the sky and realized that it was almost dawn. He wondered if there was a mine nearby. He wanted to mine and collect bubbles. Unfortunately, he didn't dare leave the city. He couldn't travel far from Hong Yuye. He would be completely exposed. He had a feeling that it was her who kept their location a secret. The person who loved Yunruo seemed to hate him to no end. He was bloodthirsty enough to have Jiang Hao killed. The Sunset Immortal sect might know by now that Jiang Hao had left the sect. They would be hot on his trail. I wonder if there's a market here. Jiang Hao wanted to sell the things he had on him. He also wanted to buy talisman-making materials and tea leaves. After returning to his room, Jiang Hao began to study the third form from the 7 forms of the Heavenly Blade. Although it was difficult, he could not afford to put it off any longer. His cultivation was stable now, especially after returning from a visit to his old house. The next day, Jiang Hao stood by the window and looked at the city below. He was leaving the next day, so he probably wouldn't have a chance to come back for a visit. In the past, he had a family and a home here. Now, there was nothing left for him in this city. Jiang Hao decided to take a stroll around the city. He had been extremely cautious for over 10 years. Today, he could relax, especially since he had the protection of Hong Yuye. As he left his room and walked through the corridor, a door to the left opened. Fang Jin came out of the room. Jiang Hao was a little surprised. He nodded at him in greeting and headed downstairs. Please wait a moment, said Fang Jin from behind. Yes. Jiang Hao asked. I would like to invite you for a drink. I heard that there is a new drunken immortal restaurant nearby. Jiang Hao hesitated and then nodded. He needed to find out more about the Bright Moon sect anyway. His mission was to snatch a disciple from under their noses and recruit them to the Heavenly Note sect. Let's see how strong they are. If he failed, he would have to pay 3,000 spirit stones. He had that much money on him now. It didn't matter if he failed, but he at least had to try. Chapter 127. Chapter 127. Thank the River God for saving your life. Chapter 127. Thank the River God for saving your life. At the Drunken Immortal restaurant, Jiang Hao looked at the dishes and wine on the table. Jiang Hao felt a little emotional. He had always wanted to eat at places like these but had never had the chance. I am Fang Jin of the Bright Moon sect. May I know who you are? Fang Jin asked politely. Without his junior sister following him, he felt much more relaxed. Jiang Hao Tian. Jiang Hao gave a fake name as close to his real name as possible. Fellow disciple Jiang, said Fang Jin. Junior sister Lan is still young and reckless, and she may have offended you last night. I hope you won't mind. No problem, said Jiang Hao. He didn't care much about such matters as long as they didn't conflict with his interests. It was best to stay away from them, especially when dealing with people from the Bright Moon sect. If conflicts arose, it could cause a lot of trouble for him. The Black Heavens sect and the Sunset Immortal sect were already enough for him to handle. Adding the Bright Moon sect to that list would be terrifying. In that case, I thank you on behalf of junior sister Lan. By the way, this spiritual sword is not bad, it might suit you, Fang Jin said with a smile as he took out an ancient sword. The sword was still sheathed, and Jiang Hao couldn't confirm the exact details. However, there was a fluctuation of spiritual energy around it, subtle yet immense. This sword was not as good as the one from last night, but it was much stronger than ordinary treasures. It could fetch a good price. Giving such a valuable sword for a slight incident from last night seemed excessive. Do you need my help with something? Jiang Hao didn't touch the sword. Ah, you see through everything, said Fang Jin. The Bright Moon sect is extremely far from the Hidden Cloud Prefecture. We rarely set foot here. This time, we came mainly for a junior sister. We found that one of our junior sisters was missing, so we had to rush here. Tracking her trail led us to Po Lang. Junior sister Lan can be young and rude at times, but she is very talented at tracking people. She found him, but he stole her sword and ran away. That was how we ended up at the temple yesterday. Unfortunately, we couldn't get any information out of Po Lang. Jiang Hao lowered his head. Is this the same person I am tasked with recruiting? His chances seemed slim. He shook his head. I'm sorry. I don't think I can be of any help. I know nothing regarding that. That's fine. Fang Jin handed the sword to Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao refused to accept it. He wasn't of any help, so he couldn't accept the sword. Carrying a special sword like that would undoubtedly attract attention. Fang Jin did not insist. He didn't ask more questions, either. They just drank and made small talk. Jiang Hao hadn't tried alcohol for a long time. He mostly ordered tea. The tea was good. He decided to buy some. After a while, Jiang Hao and Fang Jin went their own way. Fang Jin sighed as he watched Jiang Hao disappear from his sight. He felt that Jiang Hao was overly cautious and wasn't easy to get along with. He had really wanted to give that sword to Jiang Hao as a gift so that they could at least be friends. Senior brother Fang, you're here. We've been looking for you everywhere, said Lan. Have you finished eating? Asked Bai Qiong, the white-robed woman. Yes. I had a drink with the disciple we met last night. He's a little difficult to get along with. Fang Jin hadn't gotten any useful information from him either. It seems that he is heading to Heavenly Earth City to look for Zhualan, hoping to find some new clues. Heavenly Earth City's Zhualan? Bai Qiong frowned. Heavenly Earth City's Zhualan? Bai Qiong frowned. He's not weak, said Fang Jin. Anyway, I sent someone to investigate. The disappearance of our disciple might probably be related to people from the Great Thousand God sect. That sect will do anything for money. So, whoever did it would have been paid well. Which also means there might be others behind them. It's getting complicated. I can't figure out what they want. Fang Jin sighed. When are we going to Heavenly Earth City? Bai Qiong asked. Now. Fang Jin did not want to delay. Senior brother Fang, the two people from yesterday, are they really very strong? Asked Lan. I don't know. I observed him carefully today. He seems to be in the middle stage of Foundation establishment realm, but one can never know. There are many extraordinary individuals in this world. Although we are from the Bright Moon sect, it's important for us to lie low when we are outside our sect. It's best if we avoid trouble and befriend people instead of making enemies. Of course, the most important thing is to strengthen our own abilities, Fang Jin explained with a smile. This place is close to the Heavenly Note sect. Could he be a disciple of the Heavenly Note sect? Asked Lan. Fang Jin laughed. Does it matter? I find him amiable and worth getting to know a little. There's no need to pry into where he comes from. Sometimes, we have to learn to play dumb. It might work to our advantage, especially when we venture outside. I don't really understand. Fairyland shook her head. Why should I befriend others? Can't others take the effort to befriend me instead? Bai Qiong chuckled. Junior Sister Lan, do you feel like anyone who approaches you might have an ulterior motive? Yeah. Isn't that true? Asked Lan. The conversation ended, and the group decided to leave. At this moment, Jiang Hao was walking along the street. He was taking familiar paths, or rather, the more he walked, the clearer his memories became. Which, in turn, made the place seem familiar. There were some places that he didn't remember. Some roads had been modified, and some new houses had appeared on streets that used to be empty. After some time, he reached the riverside. There were some trees by the river. Under the shade, children played around. Jiang Hao smiled. As a child, he used to play there too, but he hadn't fit in with the other kids so much. Why did I come here? Jiang Hao recalled his childhood. He used to run away and hide by the trees in the riverside to escape from the endless chore of chopping firewood. However, his stepmother always caught him, and he had to go back home. Standing there, Jiang Hao realized that most of his memories were of his stepmother. His biological father was scarce in his memories. Perhaps he had never scolded or cared for him. Jiang Hao stopped wandering around and found a place to sit. He watched the clear river and listened to the children playing nearby. For a moment, it felt like he had returned to his childhood. It was not a good thing for cultivators to be too attached to the past. However, it wasn't like he could forget these things. The memories came unbidden to his mind even when he didn't try to recall them. He felt a bit nostalgic. Splash! Jiang Hao turned and saw a child who had fallen into the river while playing. Mother, come quickly. Gaodan fell into the water. Jiang Hao walked to the river and helped the child out. The adults were rushing over. When Guodan's father reached him, he saw the child sitting near the river. He was drenched but no one was around. How did you come out? Gaodan's father asked. I don't know. Gaodan said blankly. He couldn't remember how he had come out of the river. Gaodan's father smacked his son's head. Aren't you going to thank the river god for saving your life? Chapter 128. Chapter 128. The Demoness robbed my spirit stones. Chapter 128. The Demoness robbed my spirit stones. Looking at the people kneeling by the river, Jiang Hao smiled. Those people were worshipping the river god in gratitude for saving the child. He didn't mind. It wasn't as though he was afraid to take the credit. He just didn't want to leave a trace. It would be troublesome to do so. The adults scolded the children for being careless. Jiang Hao turned around and left. It was impossible for parents to keep an eye on their children all the time, especially when they were poor and had to work. As the sky grew dark, Jiang Hao inexplicably found himself back at his old home. He stood at the doorstep for a while and hesitated. Finally, he lightly knocked on the door. The old woman, who opened the door, recognized Jiang Hao. But when she wanted to invite him inside, he shook his head. No, I came to ask for a favor from the two of you. Wait a moment. The old woman turned around and shouted, Honey, come quick. Her voice wasn't loud and seemed a bit strained. When someone responded from inside, the old woman turned back to Jiang Hao with a smile. My memory isn't very good. Jiang Hao smiled and nodded, indicating his understanding. Soon, the old man came out and looked at Jiang Hao in surprise. Young man, is there something you need? Jiang Hao hesitated for a moment. If anyone from the Jiang family comes here in the future, could I trouble you two to convey my message to them? What is it? Asked the old man curiously. Jiang Hao was silent for a while. Please tell them that their son is still alive. Although it's been tough, I've been doing well. Also, please tell them I don't hate them or blame them in any way. The old couple were very surprised to hear this. If anybody comes here, I'll definitely tell them, said the old man. Even if we die or leave from here, we'll entrust the task to someone else. Rest assured. Jiang Hao bowed and thanked them. Then, he turned around and left. He had done everything he could. He had tried his best. Now, his mind was truly free from distractions. He wouldn't have any regrets when he left tomorrow. However, there was one lie in his words. He did resent them. But this resentment was strange. Was he resentful because they sold him, or because they left so quickly without waiting for him to come back? He couldn't distinguish between the two. The next day, Jiang Hao left the inn with Hong Yuye. That morning, the second stone tablet had been thrown at him, probably to attract others. He was the bait set by Hong Yuye, waiting for other fishes to fall into the trap. Unlike normal fishing, Hong Yuye, as the angler, had no intention of exerting any effort. The bait was expected to solve the problem on its own. Jiang Hao had no objections. In fact, he was willing to do it. Po Lang had earned him several thousand spiritual stones overnight, and even if other people weren't as wealthy, he could still earn a considerable income. It is no wonder people like heading out of the sect, However, Jiang Hao understood that the risk was also greater outside the sect. Shaking his head, Jiang Hao paid and left the inn. "Thank you for staying with us. Please visit again," said the innkeeper. For a moment, he felt quite affluent in the town, completely free from the financial constraints of the sect's affairs. Yet, he still felt that he didn't have enough spiritual stones to spend. Fortunately, he had made a good haul from the robbery, significantly increasing his wealth. Thinking about it made him quite happy. "A few thousand spirit stones make you that happy?" Hong Yuye asked, holding the oil paper umbrella. Jiang Hao touched his face self-consciously. "Am I that obvious? Did I smile or something?" He wasn't worried about what others thought of him. He could remain calm around them. However, in the presence of Hong Yuye, the heaven extinction Jiu poison lost its effect. He became restless around her. It wasn't surprising that she could see through his emotions. "No." Jiang Hao shook his head. It was noon, and Hong Yuye was walking slowly under the sun with her umbrella over her head. "If you continue to receive more spirit stones, will you become more arrogant?" she asked casually. Jiang Hao didn't know how he would change if he had more spiritual stones. But he would definitely restrain himself from doing something stupid. Several thousand or tens of thousands of spiritual stones wouldn't cause a significant change in his attitude. "No, because I still need to buy good tea for you, senior," said Jiang Hao humbly. "These spiritual stones aren't enough." "How much is a heavenly rejuvenation pill worth?" Hong Yuye asked. 3,000 to 10,000, Jiang Hao replied without hesitation. Hong Yuye stopped walking and looked at Jiang Hao. "That is some extreme market prices. Would the pill sell for 7,000 spirit stones?" "Probably." "How much is the azure red tea?" Hong Yuye asked. 10,000 spirit stones for 1 kilogram, said Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao had a bad feeling about this. "So, you obtained around 3,000 spirit stones from Po Lang. If you sell the pill for 7,000, you'd have a total of 10,000 spirit stones. Remember to buy me some good tea, so I won't hold it against you for twice serving me inferior tea leaves." After saying that, Hong Yuye walked forward. She didn't even give Jiang Hao the chance to refuse. Jiang Hao stood still, feeling like he had fallen from a great height to the bottom of a valley in an instant. Jiang Hao sighed and followed Hong Yuye. No matter how many spirit stones he earned, it seemed he couldn't be happy in this life. He only hoped Hong Yuye wouldn't put him on some new tasks with the spirit stones he earned later. "Oh, by the way," said Hong Yuye from up ahead. "Remember to keep the previous teapot and use it to make tea in the future." "All right." Jiang Hao nodded. He had put away the tea set this morning and kept it for brewing tea on their journey. Being by the side of a powerful individual meant not having to worry about safety, but he still had to do everything else himself. "And remember to put those 2 stones tablets together," said Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao nodded. He was curious about what was behind these stone tablets. He could appraise them when they took a break later. There was no hurry. For some reason, he didn't dare to casually use the daily appraisal in front of Hong Yuye. With her intelligence and strength, she might figure out the function of his divine ability. "Do you have any more clues, senior?" Jiang Hao asked. When they walked out of the fallen city, Jiang Hao momentarily looked back. However, he didn't feel as nostalgic as before. "Nothing for now, but finding another one should reveal some information," Hong Yuye said calmly. She glanced at Jiang Hao. "Do you feel reluctant to leave this city?" Not really," said Jiang Hao. "There's nothing in this city that I'm attached to anymore. After all, his stepmother and his father weren't here anymore." Jiang Hao had held on to some hope that he might have a younger sibling someday. But now, there wasn't anyone in the city that he cared about. There really wasn't a single person. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao for a few seconds longer. She was a bit surprised that he wasn't lying this time. Then, the two of them quickly walked away from the main road. Chapter 129, Killing the Enemy with One Slash. Chapter 129, Killing the Enemy with One Slash. This time, Jiang Hao didn't feel any spatial changes. Instead, he saw the surrounding scene rapidly receding. They were advancing at a speed that ordinary cultivators could not comprehend. At this speed, they might reach Heavenly Earth City in 2 hours. Senior, don't you want to enjoy the surrounding scenery? Jiang Hao curiously asked while looking around. It's not certain that we'll find clues when we reach the destination. There might be clues on the secret message tablet along the way. Hong Yuye looked ahead and continued to move forward a little more slowly. Have you inquired about Heavenly Earth City? Jiang Hao was stunned. Hong Yuye stopped in her tracks, and a vast aura burst forth. Yes. Jiang Hao immediately nodded. Tell me. Hong Yuye continued moving forward. At this moment, they passed by a wine pavilion. Hong Yuye put away the oil paper umbrella and sat in the wine pavilion. She seemed to want a drink. Seeing this, Jiang Hao took out a teacup for her. I heard from the Bright Moon sect that Po Lang and the others might have captured some important people. Possibly a talented child who hasn't begun cultivating. Their talent might be extraordinary. Do they mention any specific location? Hong Yuye asked, holding the teacup. No, but those who cooperated with Po Lang were most likely their own people. Perhaps, the Heavenly Earth City's Zhualan was among them. I just didn't know if their goal had anything to do with the secret message tablet. There was someone behind the tablets, and the person who carried the tablets did what the mastermind intended. The Great Thousand God sect was working for them too. The Heavenly Note sect also had people from the Great Thousand God sect. Their goal might be to snatch away the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. But how had that attracted Hong Yuye's attention? There might be something more to it. What would you like to order? Asked the owner as he walked over to them. Jiang Hao glanced at him with his brows slightly furrowed. The man appeared middle-aged and slightly overweight. He looked like an amiable teacher. He was quite ordinary. However, Jiang Hao could sense that the man wasn't ordinary. His strength was restrained, and his spiritual energy was abundant. He was in the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao thought he must be either in the middle or the late stage. A bottle of good wine and a pot of hot water, Jiang Hao replied. All right, please wait a moment. The man smiled. Jiang Hao looked around. The owner wasn't the only one in the wine pavilion. There was also a lady. She looked like an ordinary woman, but her aura was powerful. She was at the Golden Core realm too. At the other 2 tables, there was a family of 3. There was a young couple with a young boy at the table. They ate steamed buns. They were non-cultivators. There was also a table with 4 men. One among them was in the early stage of the Golden Core realm and 3 were in the Foundation Establishment realm. Their auras were unstable, and they were probably injured. They looked highly strung and on guard against something. What are these people doing? Jiang Hao was puzzled. He had no intention of getting involved. Hong Yuye had brought him here, so he had come along. Did she want him to do something? Jiang Hao sighed wearily. When the water was ready, Jiang Hao took out Snow Queen spring tea and brewed it for Hong Yuye. A moment later, spiritual energy wafted out, attracting the attention of the men nearby. Even the owner and the lady glanced at them. Perhaps such tea was something luxurious for them. If he had made the red azure tea, would they have attacked him instead? Jiang Hao didn't think too much about it. He still needed to buy the red azure tea. After being unable to refuse Hong Yuye, he had also come to accept the situation. Perhaps there would be some additional income later on. Hopefully, it would fill the pit of the 3,000 spirit stones that the law enforcement hall would make in his pocket. Hong Yuye drank tea, while Jiang Hao drank wine. Although the people beside them occasionally glanced at them, they did not do anything else. Jiang Hao saw that the family of 3 was about to leave. Father, can you buy me a toy this time? Asked the little boy expectantly. The man smiled and nodded. Yes. Then it's a promise you have to keep, said the little boy. The woman looked helplessly. The 3 of them were just about to walk out when 3 people covered in scarlet flames appeared in front of them. The man in the lead looked pale and ferocious. Please wait. He Chang stopped the family of 3. I'm going to use the B100. Soul banner later. I hope you can stay and be a sacrifice for me. Sir, the man pulled the child back. We have some silver here. He handed over his money, hoping that his family would be allowed to leave safely. He Chang slapped the silver coins out of the man's hand. Stay quiet and wait for a while. A blood-red saber appeared in his hand. The blade reeked of blood. He swung the large sword, intending to sever the legs of the 3 people in front of him. A surge of blood-red aura instantly surged. Seeing this terrifying sight, the husband and wife instinctively held onto their child in fear. It seemed like they wanted to block the incoming strike. Clang! Just as the large sword was about to strike the 3 individuals, Jiang Hao threw his cup at the attacker. The man with the raised sword was in the early stage of the Golden Core realm, and the man and woman behind him were both in the Foundation Establishment realm. Their auras carried a bloody scent, indicating that they were disciples of the Blood Fiend sect from a distant region. The Blood Fiend sect was not a large sect and was ranked very low when compared to other sects. Golden Core realm was the highest achievement in such sects. Nobody achieved a level beyond that. Why bother troubling ordinary people? Jiang Hao asked softly. He didn't want to get involved, but he couldn't help himself. Although he wasn't as strong, he knew his limit. If it was someone he couldn't deal with, he would have stayed quiet. However, when he had the ability to help someone, he couldn't just sit and watch. Mid-Foundation Establishment realm, He Chang looked at Jiang Hao in contempt. He then glanced at Hong Yuye. Late stage of Foundation Establishment realm. I was just looking for some non-cultivators, but you two will do. At this moment, Hong Yuye, who was drinking tea, showed no change in her demeanor. Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. Clang. He unsheathed his half-moon blade. He used the second form, mountain suppression. The saber rose, and the power of 100 mountains pressed down. A mere early-stage Golden Core realm cultivator was simply unable to withstand the terrifying aura. Whoosh! The saber swung. Clang! The half-moon blade returned to its sheath. As for He Chang, he turned into a blood clot and fell to the ground. This shocked everyone. The 2 Foundation Establishment realm cultivators behind He Chang were so frightened that they retreated. They were about to flee. However, Jiang Hao made a move with the half-moon blade, and moonlight emerged. It was the moonslaying technique. With a slash, the 2 people's heads were severed. Jiang Hao turned to the family of 3. Pick up your silver coins and leave. Thank you. The 3 people bowed to Jiang Hao gratefully. Then the man picked up the silver coins from the floor and the family left in a hurry. Jiang Hao continued drinking his wine. Why did you attack? Asked Hong Yuye as she sipped her tea. Chapter 130. Chapter 130. I didn't want to draw my saber, but the Demoness forced me. Chapter 130. I didn't want to draw my saber, but the Demoness forced me. Jiang Hao looked at Hong Yuye. Because they dared to disrespect you, senior. Are you worried that I would blame you, or do you think more people would die if I took action? Hong Yuye casually asked while sipping her tea. Her voice was calm and indifferent, as if she didn't care about the lives of those around her. I was worried about dirtying senior's hands. It's sufficient for someone like me to kill such people, Jiang Hao respectfully replied. So full of lies. Hong Yuye continued to drink her tea. It seemed that she was accustomed to Jiang Hao lying. Seeing this, Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. There was a bit of truth in Jiang Hao's lie. He really didn't want the disciples from the Blood Fiend sect to make Hong Yuye angry. If they had succeeded in that, she might have killed everyone indiscriminately. By acting preemptively, Jiang Hao could control the situation. As long as Hong Yuye was present, he wouldn't hesitate to draw his sword when necessary. He just couldn't figure out why the Blood Fiend sect had come here. Logically, one of the 4 people is at the early stage of the Golden Core realm and 3 are at the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm. The Blood Fiend sect had dared to target the family in this place because they knew that those men were injured. These 4 people should know that they will be targeted. If they still continue to stay here, it must mean they have some ulterior motive. Jiang Hao looked at the shop owner and his wife. This place isn't far from Heavenly Earth City. If something happens, It's probably related to Xuelan or even the Great Thousand Divine Sect. After all, disciples from the Bright Moon Sect have been drawn here. Having made a rough guess, he decided to ask the people nearby. His own strength had already been exposed, so there was no need to hide anything. However, before he could speak, the 4 individuals stood up and asked for the bill. They were leaving. "Wait a moment," Jiang Hao called out to them. The 4 men trembled in fear. Jiang Hao's strength was evident to all. One slash had killed a cultivator at the early stage of the Golden Core realm. If that slash were directed at them, they would have no chance of escaping death. After all, they were more injured than He Chang. The middle-aged man who seemed to be the leader looked at Jiang Hao and smiled. "Senior, is there something you need?" His name was Zhao Shuo. "I want to ask you a few questions." Jiang Hao put down his wine cup and turned to Zhao Shuo. "Why did those 3 people approach you just now?" The 4 people turned pale at that question. Even the shop owner and his wife paused for a moment but quickly resumed their work. "We heard that the Blood Fiend sect conspired with Heavenly Earth City to capture disciples with a talent for cultivation," said Zhao Shuo. "We discovered one of their important bases, but we didn't expect to be caught by them. They chased us all the way here. We intended to stay here and lure them into pursuing us along the way. However, we were discovered." "Whose people are you?" Jiang Hao asked. "We are from Fallen City, from the Zhao family," Zhao Shuo replied respectfully. "Where is that base located?" Jiang Hao asked. "It's just outside Heavenly Earth City, by the Heavenly Lake," Zhao Shuo answered. "You all can leave," Jiang Hao said calmly. Upon hearing this, the 4 individuals departed in relief. They were scared that Jiang Hao might change his mind and attack them. "What do you think of their words?" Hong Yuye asked casually while sipping her tea. "They probably weren't truthful about all of it, but I feel like they didn't lie about the location," said Jiang Hao. The 4 individuals had found something at the base. Jiang Hao used his daily appraisal to find out that it was a book. If it wasn't the stone tablet, he wasn't interested. Hong Yuye remained silent and continued drinking her tea. After a while, she got up and turned to leave. Jiang Hao cleaned the teacup and picked up 2 storage treasures dropped by the Foundation Establishment realm cultivators. The golden core treasure was gone, probably shattered by the sword strike. "Oh, by the way," Jiang Hao turned to the shop owner. "Do you know someone named Xuelan? I heard he is in Heavenly Earth City. He sells information. You can inquire at the market to know more about him," the shop owner said politely. Jiang Hao nodded and thanked him. Then, he turned and left with Hong Yuye. The shop owner heaved a sigh of relief when he saw them leave. He suspected that he had been exposed, but those 2 people had been drinking tea the whole time and never paid any attention to him. Zhao Shuo and the others left, but everyone could see that something was wrong. He had expected Jiang Hao to ask about Xuelan. However, he hadn't asked until after the debacle. At that point, the shop owner didn't dare to keep silent when asked. "I'm done packing," said the shop owner's wife. "Let's go far away from here. I don't know who led us here. This place is getting more and more complicated, and the Heavenly Note sect might intervene. We definitely don't want to be dragged into this." The shop owner sighed wearily and fled with his wife. In the evening, Hong Yuye and Jiang Hao arrived in front of Heavenly Earth City. There were fewer people coming in and out here compared to Fallen City, and the street facilities were also somewhat lacking. Fortunately, they found a similar inn. It was also called the Cloud Inn, with 6 floors. 2 rooms on the Cloud. Jiang Hao took out some silver coins and placed them on the counter. "Sorry," the innkeeper said awkwardly. "We don't have any rooms available." Jiang Hao was speechless. He sensed that there weren't many guests staying at all. Did an important client book the whole place? Jiang Hao asked softly. The shopkeeper looked troubled. "Sir, this is just an ordinary inn. I hope you can understand." Jiang Hao glanced at Hong Yuye. She looked back. She looked calm as always and watched what he would do in such a situation. Jiang Hao sighed and took out his half-moon blade. He wanted to avoid trouble, but Hong Yuye always complicated things for him. Clang. He unsheathed the half-moon blade. Moonlight appeared, and he slashed at the 6th level. Moonlight radiated as he slashed toward the 6th floor. Boom! A sword light appeared, countering Jiang Hao's attack. A middle-aged man flew out of the room, frowning as he looked at Jiang Hao. But before the man could speak, Jiang Hao took a step forward, arrived in front of him, and swung his saber again. Clang! After exchanging 2 moves, Jiang Hao lifted the half-moon blade and brought it down heavily. Boom! With a single slash, he broke the man's long sword and cut through his chest. The middle-aged man fell heavily to the ground. This person wasn't strong, and Jiang Hao had intentionally restrained himself to avoid leveling the entire inn with a single strike. At this moment, the other people in the inn appeared. When they saw Jiang Hao hurting someone, they attacked together. They were merely at the middle to late foundation establishment stage. Jiang Hao didn't even draw his sword and managed to severely wound them, throwing them to the ground. Now, he approached the first middle-aged man who had appeared. "I want to stay at the inn." "Who are you?" asked the man. Clang! Jiang Hao drew his saber and slashed, severing the man's neck. Blood spurted everywhere. Jiang Hao spoke calmly. "I want to stay at the inn. I heard you've booked the entire place. Can you give us 2 rooms here?" The group of people trembled in fear, and no one dared to refuse. In the end, Jiang Hao left 2 silver coins on the counter and led Hong Yuye upstairs. Chapter 131. Chapter 131. Who's ugly? Chapter 131. Who's ugly? Jiang Hao followed behind Hong Yuye and arrived at the 6th floor. Along the way, he felt somewhat sentimental. He was always taught to keep a low profile when being away from home. However, those people downstairs didn't understand that simple principle. They booked the entire inn and made it inconvenient for the others. When people travel far and wide and finally arrive at a place only to be denied a place to stay even after paying properly, they are bound to feel resentful. There were many demonic sects in the vicinity. Why were they deliberately trying to invite trouble? Jiang Hao hadn't kept a low profile for himself along the way either. However, if he hadn't done anything, Hong Yuye would have. That would have turned significantly disastrous. "Senior, can I ask you a question?" Jiang Hao asked. At this moment, Hong Yuye was sitting by the window, watching the setting sun on the horizon. After brewing tea, Jiang Hao poured her a cup. "Others see you in a different light. I wonder if they see me the same way." This question piqued Hong Yuye's interest. She looked at Jiang Hao. "Might be, except, you're a bit ugly." Jiang Hao didn't understand what Hong Yuye meant, but he didn't dare to ask further. One small misstep could result in crashing into a wall. After drinking some tea, Hong Yuye turned to him. "Stay here for the next few days and try to find clues about the 3rd tablet. Find a way to contact others who possess the tablets. I've already taught you how to use the tablets." Jiang Hao nodded. Hong Yuye didn't set a time limit, but he had a time limit of his own. 4 or 5 days had passed out of the 3 months. There was still time. Back in his room, Jiang Hao took out the 2 stone tablets. He tried to sense the presence of other tablets but found nothing. These people had the ability to block the search for the tablets. He had no intention of blocking them. It would be better if they came looking for him. However, if he wanted them to find him, Jiang Hao needed to leave the inn. They wouldn't be able to sense his location when he was with Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao used daily appraisal on the 1st tablet. Jiang Hao was somewhat surprised. The owner behind this tablet was actually searching for treasures. Had he already become involved in hunting whatever treasure the person was looking for? He didn't know about such matters, but the last sentence put his mind at ease. This tablet was currently safe. However, the fact that the tablets could be combined into 3 or 9 pieces meant that there were at least 9 secret language tablets. Is 3 months enough time to find them all? If he obtained another tablet, he could combine them. There was still hope. "I just don't know if the owner of the treasure is the person Hong Yuye is looking for." Jiang Hao couldn't figure it out. Perhaps someone had acquired the treasure and then dispersed the tablets to achieve their goal. For a moment, Jiang Hao wondered if the person behind the tablet had offended Hong Yuye somehow, or if Hong Yuye wanted to snatch the treasure for herself. He recalled the second time he had met Hong Yuye. She had said that she wanted the heavenly fragrance Dao flower because she liked it. Now, seeing that the secret language tablet could be used to find treasures, it was not surprising for her to want it. Jiang Hao couldn't understand. All of this was unrelated to him, so he didn't dwell much on it. He needed to find Zuolan as soon as possible and find the next stone tablet. He had to return to the sect within 3 months. The wine shop owner mentioned a market. It might be a market for cultivators. I'll go out and have a look tomorrow. I can sell the pills I have on me. If there's time, I can also look around. Maybe I'll be able to find. He wanted to find his stepmother and his father. If they weren't in this city, he would forget about them for good. However, if they were here, there was no harm in looking for them. After making up his mind, he took out the storage treasures he had picked up from the shop today. There were a total of 200 spirit stones. Those people had been poor like him too. In addition to the spirit stones, there were also some pills. They were all ordinary ones. He found some healing talismans as well. Each healing talisman could be sold for 50 or 60 spirit stones. If he managed to sell everything he had, he might be able to obtain over 10,000 spirit stones this time. The red azure tea was costly. He still needed to save some spirit stones after buying that tea. Jiang Hao opened his attribute panel. My lifeblood and cultivation haven't changed after I traveled out of the sect. It's truly difficult to find bubbles outside. It's so difficult to find a place to mine or raise spirit herbs. Maybe I can kill some beasts. He had made a significant improvement when it came to the state of his mind, though. He checked his abilities. Except for the clear and pure heart ability, which was taking a long time to recover, others were fine. Jiang Hao had 3 choices now. He could either cultivate, study the Nameless Manual, or learn the 3rd form from the 7 forms of Heavenly Blade. After hesitating a little, he chose to study the Nameless Manual. He had just advanced a few days earlier, so it was difficult for him to make progress. He had very little understanding of the 3rd form of the Heavenly Blade, and it would take him a long time to understand it. On the other hand, he had been studying the Nameless Manual for a while now and had made some progress on that front. Early the next morning, Jiang Hao put away the Nameless Manual and walked out of his room. He looked around and finally headed to a room on the 3rd floor. He knocked on the door. The door slowly opened. A young woman was on the other side. When she recognized Jiang Hao, she was terrified. This is the room fee for today. Jiang Hao took out 2 silver coins. Can I see the person inside? He was looking for the person he had injured. The opponent from yesterday was at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm and was stronger than most. Jiang Hao had thought the person might be staying on the 6th floor, but it seemed they were staying on the 3rd floor. Jiang Hao placed the silver coins in the hands of the young woman and walked in. The middle-aged man was lying on the bed, recovering from his injuries. When he saw Jiang Hao, he was on guard. He half expected Jiang Hao to attack again. "Senior. Don't worry. I'm just here to ask a few questions, that's all," said Jiang Hao gently. Chapter 132. Chapter 132. The Demoness is in my room. Chapter 132. The Demoness is in my room. Jiang Hao's arrival made Chen Quan terrified. In his family, he was the most powerful one. This time, he received news that a sect's expert had come to Heavenly Earth City. In order to meet them, he had deliberately booked the whole inn. However, before they arrived, he had to encounter a terrifying cultivator. It was just his rotten luck. Chen Quan had even gotten severely injured in the fight. This was definitely a Golden Core Realm cultivator. It was said that powerful people were often temperamental. He hadn't believed it. He thought that powerful people were always intelligent. But now, he finally understood why powerful individuals were often unpredictable. Only weaklings needed to flatter the stronger ones. A powerful person just needed one strike to put an end to everything. Senior, what do you wish to ask? Chen Quan struggled to stand up. Even if severely injured, he had to stand up to show respect. While facing such a powerful cultivator, He couldn't just choose to lie down in bed. At this moment, a woman came over to support him. Jiang Hao was somewhat surprised by his actions, but he didn't say anything. He was weaker than many others in his own sect. The same was true in various major sects. Only after venturing out of the sect did he realize that being in the Golden Core realm was indeed considered formidable. Except for a few major sects, those in the primordial spirit realm were rarely seen outside. If everything went well, he could smoothly advance to the primordial spirit realm in 1 year. He could do it by the time he turned 23, or 24 at most. It was unbelievable. Jiang Hao was a little worried about advancing to the primordial spirit realm at such a young age. He was concerned that he wouldn't be able to control his arrogance and that might lead to too many troubles. The disadvantage of being strong was that it bred arrogance and recklessness. He might end up underestimating others in his pride. Jiang Hao looked at the man who had managed to get up. "What is your name?" "I am Chen Quan. I offended you yesterday. Please forgive me, Senior." Chen Quan bowed respectfully. "Junior brother Chen, is there a cultivator's market in Heavenly Earth City?" asked Jiang Hao. "Yes, it's located in a forest to the west of the city. There is a formation barrier there. The market only opens once a month. The next opening would be tomorrow," said Chen Quan. Jiang Hao nodded. "Who is the strongest in Heavenly Earth City?" Heavenly Earth City has 2 cultivation families. The strongest are the heads of these 2 families. Both are at the early stage of the Golden Core realm. "Are there any spirit mines nearby?" Jiang Hao asked. "I heard there is one in Luo Yuan City." Chen Quan thought for a moment. "But it's quite far from Heavenly Earth City." Jiang Hao nodded and didn't ask anything further. He thanked the man and stood up to leave. The people inside the room were relieved. At the entrance of the inn, Jiang Hao extended his senses outward and began examining the terrain. Soon, he walked slowly along the streets. Along the way, he heard many vendors shouting and advertising their wares. When he came across a stall selling roasted chicken, he stopped and looked at the crispy and tender chicken on display. It reminded him of the past. He must have seen something like this before but couldn't afford to eat it. After standing there for a moment, he continued on. He didn't need to eat it to reminisce about the past. He later arrived in the residential area of the city. He walked along the houses and the surrounding streets. Jiang Hao observed the people around him as he walked. As evening approached, he returned somewhat regretfully to the Cloud Inn. Jiang Hao had sensed nothing. "Perhaps it's not in this city," he muttered. He then returned to his room. He decided to check out the market that opened tomorrow. Jiang Hao had strolled through the area and sensed a formation in place. As soon as he opened the door to his room, he saw Hong Yuye sitting on a chair in his room. "Senior, why are you here?" he asked in surprise. Hong Yuye glanced at him, and a terrifying power emerged. Bang! Jiang Hao crashed heavily into the wall. The sudden attack caught Jiang Hao off guard. He hadn't done anything wrong. "You look confused." Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao, who got up from the floor. "How long do you think a pot of tea can be enjoyed?" Jiang Hao was stunned. In Fallen City, Hong Yuye had stayed in her own room, so he hadn't disturbed her. He had thought it would be the same now. He remembered that Hong Yuye was studying the stone tablets in Fallen City. However, they hadn't found a 3rd tablet yet. She was so powerful. She could very well make her own tea. Jiang Hao didn't say that out loud. He could only lower his head and admit his mistake. "It's getting dark," Lan Jin complained while looking at the sky. "It's a pity we were delayed by that monster." The appearance of such a powerful monster nearby is obviously unnatural. It seems that Heavenly Earth City has become much more dangerous lately. Bai Qiong sighed. Their group could have reached Heavenly Earth City the day before yesterday. "We gained quite a lot of good things by killing the monster, but I wonder if it will alert others," Fang Jin said as he walked ahead. They were on the main road, with the Cloud Inn up ahead. They intended to stay the night there. "Have the senior uncles arrived yet?" Bai Qiong asked. "Not yet. It seems they were intercepted by the Heavenly Saint sect." Fang Jin shook his head. Not yet. It seems they were intercepted by the Heavenly Saint sect. Fang Jin shook his head. Just hearing that name gave them a headache. It wasn't that the Heavenly Saint sect was particularly powerful. Compared to the Bright Moon sect, the Heavenly Saint sect was just average. But the Heavenly Saint sect wasn't afraid. They intended to fight them anyway. They were crazy. Even the Clear Sky School found them troublesome. It was always the weaklings who created unnecessary trouble. After a while, they arrived at the Cloud Inn. They saw a middle-aged man waiting for them. The three of you must be the disciples from the Bright Moon sect. I, Chen Quan, want to welcome you here. They bowed in greeting. Lan Jin looked upstairs. I remember your people said they booked the entire inn, but I see quite a few people living here. Chen Quan lowered his head in embarrassment. The others didn't dare to speak of it either. This surprised Fang Jin and his group. They didn't need to book the whole place anyway. That would attract too much attention. Are you injured? Fang Jin asked. It's nothing. Chen Quan smiled. I was injured by a monster, but it's nothing serious. By the way, the rooms have already been prepared for the three of you. If you need anything, please feel free to let us know. We've also gathered information about Zhuolan as well. We've made progress on other matters as well. Thank you very much, friend. If you don't mind, I can help you with some cultivation matters, Fang Jin said gently. Since the man had helped them so much, it was only right to offer some guidance. Chen Quan and the others were overjoyed at the offer. At night, Fang Jin heard a knock on the door. When he opened the door, he saw a flustered Bai Qiong and Lan Jin outside. They quickly blundered into the room and closed the door. The person who injured Chen is right next door, Bai Qiong whispered. Chapter 133, Asking for the Demoness name. Chapter 133, Asking for the Demoness name. Just next door? Fang Jin was surprised. What exactly happened? I heard that Chen had indeed booked the entire inn for us, but two people arrived a couple of days ago, Bai Qiong said. They wanted to stay at the inn. When Chen told them that the entire inn was booked, they attacked him. Then, the person left 2 coins of silver on the counter and said that they would be staying here. There are indeed many dangerous individuals. Chen and his family were fortunate to survive. If those people were from the demonic sect, Chen's family would have suffered more than just a few injuries. Fang Jin sighed. But wasn't the person too noticeable? Didn't you say that peace should be valued when outside one's own sect? The person was just asking for trouble in behaving that way, said Lan Jin. Fang Jin nodded. That's true. So, junior sister Lan, you shouldn't resort to such behavior. But in situations like these, where the entire inn is booked and you just want one room, what should one do? Asked Lan Jin. You can discuss this later with junior sister Bai Qiong tonight. We need to focus on the main matter right now. There's news about Zhuolan. He will appear at the marketplace tomorrow. He will be selling 3 things, information, spirit herbs, and disciples, Fang Jin continued. Selling disciples? What does that mean? Lan Jin asked curiously. Does it mean he has people for sale? Bai Qiong frowned. That might mean that the people captured recently might be related to this, said Lan Jin. It's not certain, but that might be the case. However, I don't think he'll be so bold as to announce that he will be selling disciples in the market, said Fang Jin. However, there is always a chance that he might be that audacious. We need to proceed with caution. Should we split up and approach from 3 different places? Lan Jin asked. No. Zhuolan is too powerful, and it's too dangerous for you to act alone, junior sister Lan, said Fang Jin. I have already refined my spirit sword. Although my strength is not as good as yours, it's not bad either, Lan Jin said earnestly. It's not about strength. Junior sister Lan, you lack experience. Bai Qiong smiled and shook his head. They were concerned that their junior sister might attract trouble. She was still too young and reckless. Then what should we do? Should we go to the place where information is being sold or to the place where disciples are being sold? Asked Lan Jin impatiently. After a moment of thought, Fang Jin came up with a solution. Let's go to the place where disciples are being sold first. With your talent for finding people's trails, we might be able to learn more about the whole thing. By the way, Chen's family has some news that there have been some unusual activities near the Heavenly Lake outside the city, said Bai Qiong. Maybe we'll get more clues there. If we find nothing tomorrow, let's go investigate that area. After talking for a while, Bai Qiong and Lan Jin prepared to return to their rooms. Before they left, Fang Jin turned to Lan Jin. Junior sister Lan, if you happen to meet the people next door, remember to be polite to them. Making enemies rashly will only affect our plant. All right, said Lan Jin. After they reached their room, Lan Jin complained to Bai Qiong. Senior sister Bai, don't you think senior brother Fang is being overly cautious? The three of us are in the Golden Core realm. I alone can defeat the strongest expert from the Chen family. You and senior brother Fang are stronger than me. Senior sister, don't you think senior brother is too humble? The three of us are Golden Core state cultivators. It's just better to make a habit of keeping a low profile. Bai Qiong smiled. Early the next morning, Jiang Hao woke up with the nameless manual in his hands. Today was the opening day for the market. He had to go there. While dealing with his own matters, he wanted to search for Zhuo Lan's whereabouts too. The ultimate goal was to find the stone tablet and figure out who was behind it. The person behind it probably wouldn't be someone he could handle. However, Hong Yuye might make a move at that time. Anything at or below the Golden Core realm shouldn't be a problem for him, but if it was someone in the primordial spirit realm, fighting them would be suicidal. He walked out of his room and knocked on Hong Yuye's door. Creak. The door slowly opened. Jiang Hao saw Hong Yuye sitting by the window and looking outside. The sun had not yet risen. It was just the right time to watch the sunrise from the window. The sun rose as he made tea for Hong Yuye. Senior, do you sense anything? Jiang Hao poured a cup of tea for her. Is there a courtyard here? Hong Yuye suddenly asked. Yes. There is a relatively large courtyard at the back. Jiang Hao nodded. Although he didn't know what Hong Yuye wanted to do, he would do his best to assist. She was truly powerful. He had wanted to ask about her cultivation level several times but hadn't dared to do so. If she was truly very powerful, he would have a chance of breaking away from the demonic sect without consequences. He would be truly free. However, that was just wishful thinking. He didn't know how many years he would have to wait to advance. Jiang Hao sighed wearily. There wasn't even a question of finding out Hong Yuye's cultivation realm. She hadn't even mentioned her name till now. He hadn't asked, either. Jiang Hao hesitated. Lately I've met many people who keep asking me about you. I don't know your name yet, senior. Jiang Hao was being tactful. They had encountered many people on this journey, so it wasn't entirely a lie. Hong Yuye's hands paused on the teacup. She glanced at Jiang Hao with eyebrows raised. She looked amused. Just when Jiang Hao thought he had messed up, she spoke. My name is Hong Yuye. Don't mention it to others. Of course. I'm Jiang Hao, he said and bowed. He had never told her his name, either. Hong Yuye drank her tea. I want to use the courtyard. Help me plant some spirit herbs, she said. What kind of spirit herbs do you need? Jiang Hao asked curiously. As for the courtyard, it shouldn't be a problem. He could just ask the inn staff to leave the courtyard alone. Most of the guests in the Cloud Inn were cultivators, which made things easier. He only needed to visit them and ask them to stay away from the courtyard. A simple display of intimidation and offering 1 or 2 spirit stones would suffice. If they still didn't cooperate after that, he could take further action. It seems that I can't avoid attracting attention outside the sect, thought Jiang Hao regretfully. Something similar to the flower you have in your courtyard, Hong Yuye said calmly. Jiang Hao was stunned. Where would he find something like that? Senior, do you mean the heavenly fragrance Dao flower? Is that a problem? Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao with a faint smile. However, he knew the danger behind that smile. No problem at all. He left Hong Yuye's room. A spirit herb like the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Jiang Hao pondered on it. Where would he find something like that? He thought about the time when he had substituted the red azure tea with a cheaper version. Hong Yuye hadn't really minded. Even when he served her the Snow Queen spring tea, there wasn't any problem at all. Maybe he could find a substitute for the heavenly fragrance Dao flower with something else. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't know how many spirit stones he would have to spend to find a dupe of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. It seemed like he was going to be broke again. Chapter 134, Chapter 134, Earning some spirit stones. Chapter 134, Earning some spirit stones. Leaving the inn, Jiang Hao looked around the backyard. It was quite spacious and seemed suitable for growing spirit herbs. However, the soil wasn't very good. He would need to buy some good soil and spirit liquid. There was also a back door that appeared to be frequently used, which posed a bit of a problem. Hong Yuye didn't like people loitering around her. Jiang Hao's spirit beast had suffered a lot at her hands. So far, the beast hadn't seen her because Hong Yuye always slammed it wherever to make it unconscious. After inspecting the courtyard, Jiang Hao went to the counter. "Is the backyard available for use?" he asked. "The backyard?" The innkeeper looked at Jiang Hao. If you want to use it, we can make it available." Jiang Hao nodded. "I want to use it for something, but please make sure no one sets foot in there. Our inn can manage that." "We'll lock the back door," said the innkeeper. "Our inn is an ordinary inn but..." Jiang Hao understood what he meant. The inn was just an ordinary inn, but the residents living in it were mostly cultivators. He couldn't control the others. "Don't worry about others. I'll talk to them," said Jiang Hao in assurance. "How much would it cost to use the backyard?" The innkeeper wanted to say it was free, but Jiang Hao earnestly wanted to pay. 1 silver per day, the innkeeper said reluctantly. Jiang Hao paid him 3 silver coins. "I'll use it for 3 days. If I need it for longer, I'll inform you. Please tidy it up by today." The innkeeper nodded. "If anyone tries to object, just wait for me to come back," said Jiang Hao. "All right," the innkeeper said. "Thank you, senior." Jiang Hao left the inn. After a while, the 3 people from the Bright Moon sect also came down from their rooms. They saw the staff cleaning the backyard. "What are you going to do here?" Bai Qiong asked the innkeeper. The innkeeper was nervous to see the 3 people. "The guest from room 5 wants to use the backyard, so we're having it cleaned." "Oh." Fang Jin was a bit surprised. Room 5 was the room next to them. Only 5 people were living on the 6th floor. "Did they say why they wanted to use the backyard?" he asked. "I didn't dare to ask." The innkeeper shook his head. "Innkeeper, I have some questions," said Lan Jin. "Were you present when someone attacked this place yesterday?" The innkeeper hesitated. Lan Jin assured him that he wouldn't get into any trouble. "Yes," he said softly. "All right. I just wanted to ask about the spell the person might have used and what you had to face," said Lan Jin. Fang Jin and Bai Qiong remained quiet. They were also curious to know about it. "He used a saber. Chen Quan faced him, but the saber injured him. He remembered it vividly." "How many moves did he use?" asked Lan Jin. "A single geocentric lightning might have been enough to heavily injure him. Unless he is in the Golden Core realm." Fang Jin smiled. "Junior sister Lan, your guess might be correct. It's better not to underestimate people." He turned to the innkeeper. "Did that person try to destroy the inn? Is he the same person renting the backyard?" "He didn't try to destroy the inn. It seemed like he only wanted a room to stay in. He even paid for the rooms." Fang Jin nodded and then turned around to leave. Lan Jin was confused. Bai Qiong sighed. That person only wanted a room to stay in. He definitely didn't intend to cause trouble. If you use the geocentric lightning, imagine what it would have done to the inn. Lan Jin thought about it. A geocentric lightning attack might create a deep hole in the inn. She then thought of using her spirit sword. With the sword, she could injure the enemy without killing him. Maybe she underestimated the person, but he didn't seem to be stronger than her in any way. Jiang Hao landed in the forest in the west of the city. He observed the surroundings for a moment and then walked inside. He saw an ordinary market. There were many stalls in the place and people wandered about. Unlike the city, there was not a single ordinary non-cultivator here. However, the cultivation realms of the people present were generally low. Most of them were in the lifeblood refinement realm, with very few in the foundation establishment realm, and not a single person was in the golden core realm. Jiang Hao realized that his illusionary middle foundation cultivation realm might be considered top-notch here. However, being weak was equivalent to being poor. He had no money to spend on things. He needed to sell the things he had on him instead. Jiang Hao realized that there was an insurmountable gap between major sects and minor sects. As a talisman maker, even if he created numerous 10,000 sword talismans, he couldn't sell most of them. He couldn't really sell the 1,000 miles teleportation talisman. It would fetch him a good price, but it was painstaking to create. Jiang Hao asked around to confirm the pricing in this market. He found that the pricing was lower than the Heavenly Note sect. For example, a healing talisman only cost 27 spirit stones here. There were a few people who were selling talismans. He walked to a small empty stall and displayed his talismans for sale. "Young man, setting up a stall here requires you to pay some spirit stones. It's not free. Someone will come to collect a fee later," said a kindly middle-aged man. Jiang Hao glanced at the man. He was in the later stage of the foundation establishment realm. Although the man was trying to conceal his cultivation realm, Jiang Hao could sense that he was a fairly strong cultivator. "Thanks for the reminder," Jiang Hao said. Afterward, he displayed the foundation establishment cultivation pills he had refined, as well as some talismans and spirit swords. He even took out several divine walk talismans and laid them out for sale. Spirit concentration talisman. 10,000 swords talisman. Healing talisman. "Young man, how much for the healing talismans?" asked the middle-aged man. 26, Jiang Hao said. "I'll take 5, said the middle-aged man without hesitation. It was 1 spirit stone less than the market price, but he could still make a profit from selling them. "What about the spirit swords?" the middle-aged man asked again. 7 spirit stones, Jiang Hao said. The market price was between 8 and 12 spirit stones. "How many do you have? How many do you want?" 10. Jiang Hao gave him 10 spirit swords. He had plenty of spirit swords. For a moment, the middle-aged man was dumbfounded. Where did this person come from? Did he rob a rich family? "I'm Shashin. And you?" he asked. "I'm Jiang Hao Tian," Jiang Hao replied. He observed Shashin for a moment. Although he was dressed plainly, his energy and lifeblood were strong, and his cultivation was strong. It was a sign that he was on the right track and had the potential to reach the Golden Core realm soon. "Do you have plans to strive to reach the Golden Core realm?" whispered Jiang Hao. Shashin was stunned by the question. Chapter 135, 3 Unusual Statuses. Chapter 135, 3 Unusual Statuses. Shashin was puzzled. Jiang Hao's question seemed irrelevant. Who among cultivators didn't strive for the Golden Core realm? Reaching the Golden Core realm meant stepping onto the path of immortality. Why else would people often talk about the Golden Core realm? Ascending to the Golden Core realm was incredibly difficult, and people usually didn't make it, even after striving their whole lives. Talent, resources, effort, and luck were all needed. Some people had sufficient talent but lacked resources or couldn't find a suitable master to learn from. They missed out on great opportunities. Their potential was often wasted. Although Jiang Hao had a decent cultivation technique, his master could only teach him up to the Golden Core realm. After that, no one could teach him further. There was a need for pills to be able to advance, too. Fellow cultivator, you jest. Cultivators naturally aspire to achieve the Golden Core realm, Shashin said. Do you have spirit stones? Jiang Hao asked. Shashin was on his guard. He smiled. I have about 100, not much. If I had many spirit stones, why would I be setting up a stall here? I see. Jiang Hao nodded. A late Foundation Establishment realm cultivator like him couldn't possibly afford the heaven rejuvenating pill. Even if Jiang Hao focused on talisman making, it would take him a long time to save enough. The sect's resources only provided him with 20 spirit stones in the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm and 30 in the middle stage, which meant he could earn a total of 360 spirit stones in a year, 3,600 in 10 years, and 72,000 in 20 years. He could barely make it. And that's assuming he didn't spend any. Jiang Hao didn't rely on sect resources. It wasn't that he didn't care about spirit stones, but his resources had been suspended for 5 years. Only slightly over 2 years had passed after that. He sat at his stall and stopped talking. Since the person couldn't afford it, it was no use mentioning the heaven rejuvenating pill to him. He focused on running the stall, and later, he planned to visit some proper shops to see if he could sell the pill there. Although he would have to sell it at a lower price, it was better than selling it in the Heavenly Note sect. Shixin was surprised to see that Jiang Hao had gone quiet. He couldn't understand what Jiang Hao had been willing to sell. He was puzzled because Jiang Hao had first asked him about the Golden Core realm and then about spirit stones. Was there a connection between the two? He couldn't understand. Shixin was curious. What would he have said if I had said yes? After a while, Shixin noticed that Jiang Hao's stall was doing well. He had sold almost all his wares. This made him feel restless. He had a feeling that he was missing out on something important. He kept wondering why Jiang Hao had asked about the Golden Core realm and spirit stones. Then it hit him. Does that person have something that can help me advance to the Golden Core realm? Maybe he asked about the spirit stones because he was willing to sell them. Shixin was worried that this might be a scam. Young man, you asked me about spirit stones before. How much were you thinking exactly? Asked the middle-aged man. Jiang Hao looked at him. About 10,000. Shixin's face turned pale. 10,000? If this really was a scam, the young man was indeed very ambitious. Shixin glanced at Jiang Hao. He seemed to be in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. I do have that amount. You do? Jiang Hao was surprised. Someone in the late stage of Foundation Establishment realm had so many spirit stones. Do you need pills? Asked Jiang Hao. What kind of pills? Asked Shixin. Heaven rejuvenating pill, Jiang Hao said truthfully. Heaven rejuvenating pill? Shixin exclaimed. But those pills are for advancing to the Golden Core realm. He had been saving money for decades to buy something like that. Never in his wildest dream did he hope to find a person selling them here. Jiang Hao nodded. Shixin pointed to a corner nearby. Can we discuss this in private? Jiang Hao nodded. After packing up, the two of them went to a corner. Jiang Hao wasn't worried about anything. He had appraised himself yesterday. He found 3 abnormalities: heaven extinguishing venomous insect and by yeast spirit sealing technique, his divine ability, which was still recuperating, and Hong Yuye's magic which distorted other people's perception of him. Jiang Hao wondered what he looked like in other people's eyes. He was a little concerned about the damage to his divine ability. Unfortunately, there was no time to find a solution for that. Can I inspect the pill? Shixin asked. All right. Jiang Hao handed him the pill bottle. Shixin opened the bottle and sniffed. The fragrance of the pill was faint, but it was refreshing. He could even feel the stir of the spiritual energy in his body. He closed the bottle and reluctantly handed it back to Jiang Hao. How much can you give for it? Jiang Hao asked. I have more than 7,000 spirit stones, plus other items, which are worth about 1,000. Shixin looked at Jiang Hao and hesitated. I can give you 8,500 spirit stones. 8,500? Jiang Hao was a little surprised. It was 1,500 spirit stones more than he had expected. Shixin thought Jiang Hao wasn't satisfied with the price. I know it's a little less. We can wait a bit longer. I can probably borrow some spirit stones and give you 10,000 for it. No need, said Jiang Hao. 8,500 spirit stones are enough for me. Just answer some of my questions and we have a deal. Really? Shishin found it hard to believe. He handed the spirit stones, some pills, and spirit stones to Jiang Hao. What did you want to ask? Jiang Hao was feeling a bit emotional. The pills and spirit swords would earn him at least 1,200 spirit stones. Even after he spent some money on the red azure tea, he would have an extra 1,700 spirit stones left. Do you know Zhualan? Jiang Hao asked. Zhualan. Shishin nodded. He is in the market too. He is setting up 3 stalls to sell various things. On this street, there should be a stall selling pills and whatnot. The one in the middle of the street is for selling disciples, and the one at the end of the street sells information. These 3 places start selling at the same time, so it's impossible to determine which one is the real Zhualan. Or perhaps all 3 are fake. Similar incidents have happened before, but everyone believes that they are all real. Upon hearing this, Jiang Hao immediately thought of the Great Thousand God sect. These 3 people could all be clones. If the clones were present, it meant that the original person wasn't far away. It was just difficult to pinpoint the exact location. He now understood why it took the law enforcement hall so long to find the culprit who was at the Foundation establishment realm before. A stall to sell disciples? Wouldn't that be children? Jiang Hao hesitated a while and decided to take a look. It was not far away from where his stall was. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.